Dan, it's an amazing morning out here. You'll probably hear heavy artillery, 155mm artillery behind us. It's counter-battery fire. This position is being fired on. We can see in the background black smoke from a village. We're with the command element. It's a very dramatic scene. We have the XO, the commander here, calling in airstrikes. They're just calling the Cobra to come in. And what they found is that there's a tank in this particular city. It's right next to a mosque. And interestingly, the way they target that is they actually have artillery rounds which will come up, go in, land, go into the ground, and then explode to kill the tank and cause as little damage to the mosque as possible. Now, they are engaging Republican Guard. The enemy here on the ground have black berets and camouflage suits. What they're most concerned about, Dan, is what's called a BM-21. This can launch 40 rockets at a time. It is their best chemical munitions holder. There is one in the city, and I can't tell you what city it is, that's just up the road here, and they're concerned that they would use these chemical weapons. You can hear the thunder now of the rockets in the background. We have a Cobra helicopter coming up here, close to air support. Dan, it's a lot like watching a football coach during the Super Bowl. They're out there, they have their maps, they have their game diagrams. Just an amazing display, Dan.
Bob, can you tell us anything more about these 4 members of the unit you're with who were killed?
Dan, I can't. I just got word of it and as we get word of most things when we're on the air here. It's sort of a black hole in terms of hearing other things. Spirits are pretty high here, pretty charged up in terms of taking on attacking the enemy. We have not heard that report.
Now, let me ask you again. You say that they saw a tank located right next to a mosque. Is the belief that this was done intentionally as a way to protect that tank against United States attacks, because the U.S. forces would be reluctant to attack something so close to a mosque?
Absolutely. In fact, I was able to take pictures of an armored personnel carrier with red crescent on the side that had rockets and grenades, had very heavy weapons inside. They've been hiding them in hospitals. They've been using hospitals as command headquarters. They're actually hospitals that are housing some tanks at this point. We've been able to get this on a case-by-case basis. They know they're going to be killed, and so they're trying to hide, to bunker down, to put their weapons in places. But interesting, this BM-21 is a very important weapon system to concentrate on, because it's small, it's mobile, it's a brand new weapon. I'm asking them this morning, since we have all this artillery out there, why they're not hitting it, and they said that it's just too hard, it just moves too quickly. Now, we were hit with artillery, medium-range artillery from the Iraqis, pretty close, within a couple hundred yards of us. Just boom, boom, the whole ground started shaking. And interestingly, even the veterans out here are a little unnerved by that artillery, because there's just nothing they can do. The tactic out here is gun and run. They'll go, they'll shoot, they'll move their weapons and try and get out of the grid before there's incoming artillery fire that would otherwise take them out. They're also doing that with 60mm mortars. Well, they'll take it, they'll throw the mortar in, they'll try and hit the U.S. Marines, and then they'll gun back out again. They expect to take casualties. They're trying to take as few as possible. I talked to the first lieutenant out of here. He is a University of Minnesota graduate last year, and he's saying, listen, I want to bring all my men home. There's a real impetus to bring their men home, but these Marines are anxious to pull the trigger. They're not going to pull the trigger when this is civilian. We just actually had about 10 civilians walk right past us here. They're very respectful for them, and yet civilians, or those appearing to be civilians, are actually Republican Guard hiding up in town here. Now, what's very important about this battle, and I'll tell you later where we are, but I can't right now for operational reasons, is it's the first real engagement with the Republican Guard. They're getting a sense of their tactics, how they play. This is a thinking man's game. Even though there is overwhelming force on the part of the U.S., the enemy does have tactics. Some of these have been able to kill U.S. Marines and wound U.S. Marines, and and in fact, Dan, I'm watching right now. This is dramatic. So I have 2 helicopters coming here. They're both Cobra gunships. On the air a little bit longer, you'll hear them come right by me here. They'll come up the main road here. They've been told to go steal. They're going to come in and go into those targets. They have their Hellfire missiles. They have the flechettes, which are able to take out troops on the ground. You can hear overhead close air support. It's a very dramatic scene here. We are with a command element. It leapfrogs forward, backwards. The brigade will go forward, and they'll leapfrog forward here. There are lots of maps out here. You have commanders. They're on the radios. They're screaming at each other. I'm stepping back a little bit so you don't hear too much of that noise. Lots of antennas there. But it's just better than any war movie you've ever seen. Not that war is good, but in terms of just the pure drama of the moment, with the tanks and the half-tracks and the Amtraks and the double AVs and the LAVs all running in town, you'd be interested that when they're engaging the Fedayeen, they actually take these light armored vehicles. They're called LAVs. They go up to 60, 65, 70 miles an hour. They race into town. They engage them. And the locals, the Fedayeen, now call them the destroyers. And they're very fearful of them. And when they see them, some of them melt away, some will give up. But the Fedayeen, which are the hardest troops really to be able to get, these death squads, when the American troops come up, they'll actually say, "Shoot me, Allah, shoot me, Allah." So they have this same kind of Al-Qaeda, I want to die for Allah, which makes them a very, very tough enemy in terms of guerrilla forces. Now, you hear that rumble in the background, Dan? I'm just going to come over here, aim the earpiece. That sort of woof, 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 woof. Those are the Cobra helicopters. We're only about a half a mile from this village. There's number one, number two. We're watching the close air strikes here. They have 155mm howitzer behind it. A variety of different kinds of rounds they're able to put in. They put in RAPS rounds last night. Much more dedicated munitions here. The air crews are working so hard. These are the first Cobras they've been able to get. They've been doing most of it on the ground, real grunt work. They have forward officers in the town there, directing traffic in, directing the howitzer. Here's the second Cobra coming in. They're only about 50 feet over the ground, coming in at about 120 miles an hour for their airstrike. So the Marines out here are actually very sort of disenchanted with the BBC in particular. That's what they get on their shortwave radios. They think things are going well. They're outwitting the enemy. Yeah. It's like a winning football team that is getting, I guess, bad marks from the sports press. They think they're doing a great job out here and are a little angry at the press.
Yeah, well, they probably should watch other coverage apart from just one network. Keep them up to date on what we're doing, Bob.
We have our video phone up.
Hey, Bob.
Msnnbc fans.
Hey, Bob, what do you do when there's a firefight? I mean, you've talked a number of times about how your unit has been...
in the background there? Right, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Actually, yes, I can. There's a lot of artillery out here.
I understand.
What I do is I get both of our cameras out, get up, and just try and get into the thick of it, see what's happening, get a sense of what it is, talk to the Marines, get a sense tactically what they're doing, what they feel. With artillery, there's not a whole lot you can do. I mean, if it hits you, it hits you. Otherwise, and it's your biggest risk out here. Otherwise, we got pretty good protection. The Marines are sort of watching the perimeters out here, and they appreciate that we're sort of in the thick of it with them. When some of these real loud rounds come in, maybe we, flinch a little bit because we're unused to the sound. They've always heard it a lot more than us, but it's interesting, and they do like the fact that we're out here with them.
Do you stay in one place, or I mean, you've talked a number of times again about how you've been under fire. Are you literally running with them, or are you asked to stay in one place and they'll come back and get you? How does it work?
The great thing about this, Dan, is there are no restrictions. We run with them. They're going out to the front line. The other night we had those howitzers came in. I went right up to the front line to watch the counter battery radar, see the howitzers work there. We're able to range back and forth across the whole battlefield. Being with this 1st Marine Aviation Group has been terrific because we're able to go from one regiment to the other. We heard there was going to be a big battle at this town, so we flew in a couple of days ago. We've been on the ground here. No showers, no water, no shaving. One meal a day is all they're sort of down to. But you're really able to get out here and live with the grunts. We heard there was a battle this morning with the command element. We've asked to go with the battalion into the town. We can see the town in the distance, lots of smoke coming up from it. So we're able to get an absolute first-hand view of this. And amazingly, they have all secret maps. They trust us, of course, that I'm not going to tell you over the air what's on those maps or where we are. But we see the whole thing close up, all the command, the close air support, all the forward air commanders. It's a remarkable experience in terms of getting to see how the Marines operate in battle.
I think that's what's enabled you to give us such a vivid, descriptive details, as much as you can, of exactly what you're seeing, and we appreciate it. Bob Arnott, good to hear from you again.
I'm Bob Arnott here in the streets of in free Iraq. We're here with a U.S. Marine. Tell me your name, sir, what you do.
Master Gunnery Sergeant Steve Schweitzer. I'm actually with the 1st Marine Division Band, but I've been assigned to do some public affairs work with y'all, sir.
And so what's it like here? A lot of talk about the war, a lot of wait in Kuwait, you're finally here?
It's the most incredible experience of my life to come into this town. Rarely do I say this, but I'm speechless. I am blown away by the spirit, and it's just such a happening in this town, and just an outpour of communication. I mean, no one can speak each other's language, but it's incredible, absolutely incredible.
An amazing story here on the streets of in free Iraq. I'm Bob Arnott, Msnnbc. Back to you.
NBC's Bob Arnott traveling with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force.
And now to the front lines in MSNBC's Bob Arnott traveling with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force.
It's a little hard to hear you out here. There are 2 Huey command and control helos here, a couple of Cobras overhead. There's just been a major battle. We're, of course, not allowed to tell you exactly where it is, but it's part of a major U.S. Marine push. They say that this whole idea of a wait or a sort of quiet period is nonsense. We've gone over the complete game plan from soup to nuts. Of course, we're not allowed to share that until the time has come, but it's a very aggressive and very impressive plan. The headline is that they do expect to be, as they say, slimed. They fully expect a chemical attack. There are what they call BM-21 rocket launchers, which are its most efficient system. They are close to a village here. Everybody's now getting to their nut gear, and they're quite, not fearful, but they're expecting this, and they expect to be able to fight through it. If a division is hit by chemicals, or say a squadron or platoon, they'll quite quickly cycle them back, and they mean quickly, not days or weeks, but hours, and recycle them back in with new MOP gear. We're talking to some of the villagers here. What's happening increasingly is the villagers point out the bad guys, as they call them, the Bath Party members. Signal them out. They're then raided. The U.S. Marines said it would take them months to do this, but it seems as if the population is turning. There's a certain amount of mistrust after 1991 when they felt that they really were abandoned by the Army when they were here. They trust the Marines. When they said, please don't go, they said, listen, we go nowhere but forward, and they're deliberately leaving Marine components behind here to take care of these civilians. So it appears to be a turning day in this battle towards Baghdad. Very aggressive moves here, people getting geared up. Again, we can't share these operational plans with you. We've been into some of these villages. People do cheer. You do see children waving, dancing in the streets with U.S. Marines. Of course, still this reticence. But the good news is the Bath Party is being turned in by the locals, and they are either being taken prisoner or they're being shot. Now, the engagement that is up and coming here is against the Republican Guard. It will be the first major engagement with major divisions of the Republican Guard and some special Republican Guard. They're gearing up. They're on their game. We've gone over the game plan. It looks like it basically looks like a Super Bowl game strategy on steroids when you look at all the different blocking and I don't want to go into technical terms here because I don't want to give any of this away, but a very, very impressive plan here. It's getting hot, but it's felt that the weather will turn to the advantage of the Marines in terms of the way the wind is blowing, so that if chemical warfare agents are used, they will not be of any great advantage to Saddam Hussein because they'll blow right back on his own troops.
Bob, since it's clear that we're heading into the most dangerous part of this war, how would you describe the mood among the Marines you're with?
Well, it's interesting. Right now we're with what is called a command element, and these are like the best football coaches in the world. They are just, they're tough. They're completely reassured. I just interviewed General John Kelly, who's the assistant division commander out here. They don't like these guys. They really think they're hoodlums, they're bad guys, they're very angry with what they've done to the regime. They've seen summary executions of women and children as the street as they waved as American troops went by. They're angry at them, and they're absolutely bound and determined. The individual Marines, of course, say, every day out here, every day on the attack is one day closer to home. Back to you.
Bob Arnott, thank you very much. MSNBC's Bob Arnott is traveling with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, in fact, a command element of that force. Bob, what's happening where you are right now?
Well, it was a very dramatic morning. It began about 5 a.m. where there was a heavy artillery order from the 155 King of Battle howitzers onto a village here whose name we cannot give you. There were Cobra Cothin airstrikes. We actually saw the artillery that attacked us the other night. They're called D-30s. There were 6 of them. They came within several hundred yards of our position, almost killing a large number of Marines. And these were taken out by these King of Battle howitzers. Very impressive weapons in that they have the kind of pinpoint accuracy you would expect of a laser-guided missile from a jet. But, of course, they're cheaper. They're much easier to rain fire on because they're right there and they're ready to go. Great deal of success. We interviewed General John Kelly, who is the Assistant Division Commander here. He went over the sort of future plan of attack, which of course we cannot talk about except to say it is very, very aggressive. He outlined the overall sort of battle strategy, where the Marines fit into it, how aggressive they intended to be. He did warn us very sternly. He said that we were about to cross the red line, in which he believes Saddam Hussein would use chemicals. Also, there are what they call BM-21 rocket launchers. It's the most likely vehicle that they will use chemicals because it can launch 40 salvos at the same time. They need to have 40 rockets or more at a time, up to 200. We have the 5 different salvos of 40 to be able to lay out enough chemical to really be of any great danger. On a humanitarian front, I do wear another hat as a board member of Save the Children. I've been speaking on a regular basis to our president, Charlie McCormick, about efforts here inside Iraq. It is a very, very dangerous place to try and drive a convoy in, even more dangerous to go into these towns where Ba'ath members come in and out, where guerrillas, where Fedayeen make their way in and out of these villages. A very, very tricky situation. This recently liberated village, the villagers came out to us spontaneously. A real sort of change, Chris, from a couple of days ago, where the fear seems to be gone. They're very, very hopeful that the Ba'ath regime will not come back in. Some actually wanted to join the U.S. Marines, sort of touch their uniforms and guns, saying that they wanted to go to Baghdad and take out Saddam Hussein. And it's important because, people have been on the fence. They've been very concerned about whether the Marines would stay. They try to give them that assurance the Marines will stay here. They're giving out humanitarian aid here, and a real sort of genuine fondness for the Marines, and a real sense that the tide may be turning here in terms of those who believe they will be safe. But in terms of the humanitarian effort, it's still a very, very dangerous cowboy country here, and there's a lot more work that has to be done before it's safe for U.S. humanitarian groups. One final note, and that is that there's a very short timeline before malnutrition rapidly increases here, 30% malnutrition in this country to begin with, and a very high rate of diarrhea, which kills children in this country. Back to you.
Bob Arnott, thanks very much for the latest from there. MSNBC's chief foreign correspondent, Bob Arnott, is on the move inside Iraq with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force and joins us now live by phone. Bob, what's the situation where you are now?
Chris, you remember a couple of days ago we were within about 300 feet of being killed by some medium-range Iraqi artillery. Well, today they took that artillery out. In fact, you can hear some artillery outbound. Well, we know it's inbound or outbound. You can hear that in the background right here. I'm at what they call the command center here. It's amazing. They have all the battle maps. They have all the air commands and whatnot. And as I stand here, you'll have artillery strikes called, Cobra strikes. You'll have overhead air strikes called. They have been able to take this town, which I obviously cannot tell you the name of this particular town. Just an incredible scene. Cobras heading in, overhead artillery from in back of us, from in front of us. You'll have these RAPS rounds, which is a rocket sort of propelled projectile that is able to travel a great distance. The calls come in. They have a battery radar device that's able to return fire, and there's been a tremendous amount of action today. The Republican Guard were actually dressed in camo and black berets. They've been able to take this town. They're moving on to the next. General John Kelly came in and briefed us on the entire battle plan, the whole sort of soup to nuts battle plan, which we obviously cannot share with you in terms of timing or detail, but an amazing sort of trust in the press. It's a very impressive, a very aggressive battle plan here. They feel they're winning. When you look at the actual battle, when you look at it in detail on the maps, when we go up with the battalions and you see how it's being carried out, they have game strategy, very much like a football team. You have different diagrams, almost like a Super Bowl football team on steroids. They carry that out, and they feel they win and win and win. They are coming up against the very first sort of Republican Guard units. They're in full strength, some of these special Republican Guard. They still feel they're winning. They're looking at their games. They, for instance, will come along and they'll launch their artillery and move the launchers. They'll launch their mortars and they'll move the launchers. They have, for instance, in town today, there was a tank next to a mosque, and they had a very specific weapon able to take out the tank but not hit the mosque. So it's pretty impressive from here. They're a little down about what's happening back home, and particularly down about reports they hear on the BBC. Chris, back to you.
Bob Arnott reporting from inside Iraq. Thank you very much.
And our Bob Arnott is traveling with Marines. It's just before dawn in Iraq, and Bob, I understand you're in combat right now.
Lester, I can't talk too loudly here, but it's an amazing light show out here. Tremendous artillery battle with the Baghdad division of the Republican Guard. It's the first really big engagement, engaging a huge division of the Republican Guard. You can see U.S. Marine RAPS rounds making their way through the sky, and it's like being in a symphony hall. You hear a percussion instrument at one end and then the other, except the two ends of the battlefield here. Just tremendous sounds of boom, boom, boom on either horizon. They have taken the town of El Hay. We can't tell you the next town that they are after, but it is a major and really sort of brilliant strategy that they have undertaken out here. I had an opportunity yesterday to speak to several of the POWs. Now, we can't interview them, but I speak Arabic, and they're asking me questions about food and water. Some of them clearly just local peasants have been picked up, but some also the toughest members of the Republican Guard with just a haunted and angry look on their face. Another village was liberated here yesterday. We had an opportunity to talk to some of those villagers a little bit more forthcoming. They came out, they were given U.S. rations, smiles on their faces. Some saying they wanted to go with the U.S. Marines to Baghdad to be able to help take down Saddam Hussein. U.S. Marines here are really charged up. We're with a battalion here that's just about to enter a major city here as part of a concerted effort. Yesterday at CENTCOM, the commander there, using several colorful four-letter Anglo-Saxon words, basically told the commanders to get going, that this idea of a lull was nonsense and that they were to attack and be on the offensive. Although there's still no timeline, it's an amazing battle out here, Lester.
Bob, I recognize you can't tell us where you are. I can report to you that we have been told there's been a major battle with the Republican Guard somewhere near Karbala. Now, without getting into specifics of where you are, can you tell us, do you have some sense of the battlefield in terms of how well the U.S. is doing, or if the Iraqis, for that matter, are inflicting any harm on U.S. forces?
So far, they're not really inflicting any harm. They really own the battlefield. Yesterday, I was in what they call COC with all of the commanders watching the battle space, and it's like watching a Super Bowl coach on steroids in terms of the battle plan, calling every tank, calling in every. For instance, they had black berets on yesterday in camo. They knew where each sort of individual unit is. So they're completely outfoxing the Iraqis. They had just almost no chance at all. In fact, one commander said that the fight had almost gone out of him just because he had sort of rained so much death on the Iraqis. The general who was with us yesterday, John Kelly, said, listen, I want the message out loud and clear. We don't want to kill you. Give up. We don't want to kill you. Lester, back to you.
All right, Bob Arnett with the Marines right now in heavy battle right now in Iraq. And Bob is an embedded reporter, can't give specifics of location and whether he is in fact in that Battle of Karbala. Don't know, but clearly there's heavy action going on, closing in on Baghdad.
Join us now on the MSNBC Live Line is MSNBC Chief Foreign Correspondent Bob Arnott. He is traveling with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. Hello to you, Bob. I can tell you right now I'm hearing some activity behind you there. What's going on?
There's a lot of activity. This is the battle for Al Qaeda. It is the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, and it is a hell of a battle out here. We've taken 3 inbound 82-millimeter mortar shells very close to us. We came up on a T-55 tank, unexpected. They've just taken it out with an AT-4. You can hear that large explosion. More incoming here. Just landed literally about 50 feet from our position. We have the colonel with us here. We can see Amtrak's in the background. They have basically taken the bridge that seals the exit to this town, so the troops can't get out. They're furious. They desperately want to get out. You hear the small pops in the background. That's AK-47 fire. The deep throaty ones, you can't tell exactly what they're screaming. The gun's coming around here. He's got the 50 cal. He's ready. He's up. He's ready to fire. An RPG just went down the street. There's a rocket propelled grenade. We can actually hear bullets over our head as whizzes over our head.
Down the street.
In the middle of this, though, you can't believe how cool the Marines are here. Tom, tell me what's happening quick. What's happening?
That was a dud RPG, just went down Route 7 from the north to the south. We got a lot of rocket fire. We're shooting up a lot of buildings with rockets and guns, and we've got some enemy both east, west, northwest, and northeast firing at us. We're suppressing them right now. First time 4th Marines is, and I love Chrissy.
Listen, Tom Marks is one of the best battle veterans out here, one of the best people you could ever go into combat with, and we are absolutely in the thick of it. Overhead bullets, RPGs, there's a rocket-propelled grenade, 82-millimeter mortars, all incoming. Outbound, an AT-4, which just took out a T-55 tank. Behind me, U.S. Marines with their mortars. They're all nailed down here. We are surrounded on virtually every side, except, of course, there is an exit here, but these Marines are not going to retreat. They're going to take this bridge, and they are going to hold the bridge. I know you may have some questions, so back to you.
Bob, was this something that you expected to encounter, or was this more along the lines of an ambush?
We fully expected to encounter this. These are very aggressive Marines. You know, they really think that the tactics of these individuals here are either kind of poor or really poor sportsmanship in terms of putting women and children out in front of them. We came over some bridges this morning, anti-aircraft guns. You can hear them screaming in the background here. Tom now has a grenade. He's going to pull the pin on the grenade. He's going to chuck this out of the position. He's now looking down here to make sure that he's got a clear range of fire. They certainly did expect this. They expected a fierce... You can do that's a... Well, we're going to ship this. They're shooting this. Okay, we're just getting incoming around here. There's an M16. Tom's shooting up. What are you shooting at, Tom?
One individual.
You can't any more in the thick of it than this. Overhead Cobra helicopters. This is a pinned down position here, but these Marines are not going to give up. They're all ready to fire. He's put up. He sees him.
Green flag! Green flag! First entrance to his building!
First entrance to the building. They see the bad guy. They're ready to fire. Okay, the outgunner's ready. He's taking fire. Jim's shooting all this overhead Cobra gunship. Of course, he can't come into the position because there are anti-aircraft guns on the ground there that could take him out. He's got to stand back. One of the key reasons you have U.S. Marines is they are boots on the ground. They're out here, they're on the street, they're taking out these individuals. We actually saw a puff of smoke. They just came out of the building, shooting battery radar. I was looking at the outbound mortar fire, inbound mortar fire, I should say, to try and return those positions. We can see smoke, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions just infield of us here, incoming mortar rounds here. Cobra's really trying to figure out how they're going to come in from the backside. You guys are a coordinated strike. This gives you the best sense of what the U.S. Marines do. Ground and air. Here's the U.S. Cobra. He's coming down. He's about 50 feet over the ground, circling around, trying to come into the bad guy, but he does not want to come in until these Marines have had a better chance to take out an anti-aircraft system that could come in at him. People are scrambling around the Amtrak. It's just an amazing situation. We'll run up here. See if tell me what's happening here, sir.
Just extraordinary that Bob Arnott is literally asking Marines there right in the middle of gun battle and what they are doing, and they're able to respond. He was telling us that they had managed to take a bridge. They're crossing. I don't know if any of you heard. I wasn't able to make out if it was the Tigris or the Euphrates River.
Engaged to the north. This is all according to plan.
Bob, can you still hear me?
It's a very dramatic battle out here. I don't want to take all your time. Back to you if you have any other questions or.
Are you kidding, Bob? It doesn't get any more realistic than this. Let's see. Tell me where you are physically, though. Are you in a safe place? Because you're talking about bullets whizzing right over your head.
Yeah, I'm actually standing right outside with these Marines. There are bullets whizzing over my head. I didn't have a helmet, but there was an Iraqi one by the side of the road, so I'm wearing that and a bulletproof vest. But no, I'm right in the thick of it with them. Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Tremendous incoming fire, rocket fire behind us here. The culverts are coming.
In the alley.
Okay, Tom, what did you shoot? Tell me what you did.
One Iraqi with AK-47 in the friggin' alley. They pulled him back in. I got 3 more tanks coming.
We got the colonel here. The colonel is... Colonel, you're on live TV. What's happening, sir?
Well, we've come up and we've secured the north bridge to securing El Qud from the east. We're currently engaging enemy with Cobras off to our western flank. At the same time, we've got rounds coming from the city, small arms and RPGs. We've got tanks moving up in support, but we're holding the bridge just fine.
Colonel, you're one of the best people you'd ever want to be in battle. Give me your full name and your regiment.
This is 1st Battalion, 4th Marines. My name is Lieutenant Colonel John Mayer.
John's about as good guy as you don't want to be in battle. John, come, give me a shot.
Hey, here, he pulled him inside. Johnson's freaking trying to lure him out. It's a good shot to the head. Struck this tank right here, and my gunner just took out this sniper over here and got pulled. His body was pulled back into the that building right where we're just engaged with the 203.
Okay, Tom, you said that's terrible. What do you mean?
Johnson just killed him in the foyer there. Yes, sir.
Now, I got to tell you that, you'd imagine that this would be the situation that a lot of us would be a little upset or anxious, but these Marines, they're gung-ho, they're happy to be out here, they are just have a steep determination when this time.
It is just past the bottom of the hour, everybody. I'm Alex Wood here at MSNBC World Headquarters. What you're listening to is a raging firefight that is all around. The man you see right there, Bob Arnott, MSNBC's chief foreign correspondent, he is traveling with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. He's been describing to us in vivid detail about the attempts to take a bridge by the Marines right there. We're not sure if it's a bridge crossing the Tigris or the Euphrates River. I have heard in all the pandemonium and mayhem here that we're somewhere near El Qud, perhaps. We've been hearing about AK-47 fire, bullets literally whizzing over the head of our correspondent, incoming missiles, mortar shells being lobbed back by the Marines. Let's continue listening in. Bob, can you still hear me? Do you know who the enemy is in front of you? Is it Republican Guard forces?
Well, right into town here, we saw a number of these people getting out of their uniforms. I recognize their uniforms from yesterday. That is the tan uniforms with the black berets. Those are the Republican Guard. They ran out of those uniforms as fast as they could. They left their boots and stuff on the side of the road. They had big arms caches that they'd want to come back to. So on the way into town, people lying down, you could tell the difference between the soldiers and the civilians because they had no other clothes. They had their shirts off. They tried to surrender as quickly as they could. But now we are engaged with the Republican Guard. These guys don't want to give up. We've had some Fedayeen who really gave up quite easily, some regular Army, some Republican Guard. They don't want to give up this city. This has always been the jugular. This is the way that major invaders have made their way into Iraq for years. The Persians, the British. In fact, the British surrendered at this city back in the early 19th century. It's been the key route in, and it's a very important route for the U.S. Marines. You know, we've heard a lot about the Army coming in with their mechanized divisions and the Air Force overhead, you know, huge sort of powerful machine, not engaging these towns. The U.S. Marines engage these towns. They're not afraid to come in here, house-to-house fighting. The other day, I asked the general, John Kelly, I said, you know, what about Baghdad? What about these cities when you go in here? Are you afraid of this? He said, we're U.S. Marines. You know, we took Iwo Jima, and I don't want to use bad language on TV, but he said, Baghdad ain't shit, is what he said. They're not afraid. They're out here. They're door-to-door. It's an amazing thing. These are 18 and 19-year-old soldiers lying down, some of them their very first taste of battle. Jim Bruton, our cameraman, is getting the Cobra helicopter. He's trying to come back in for the strike. Let's just go back to the Colonel here. Colonel, tell me what's happening now.
Right now that the firing is calm, we brought extra tanks up here, and with our main guns and with the small arms precision fire of these Marines, we seem to have quelled the people in the immediate vicinity. My driver here happy with his small arms, and he put 203 rounds. Looks like the situation is well ahead.
Colonel, I just want the American public to hear your name one more time here, Colonel, and the name of your regiment. You're heroic Marines out here in the thick of battle.
This is 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, 1st Marine Regiment, Lieutenant Colonel John Mayer.
John Mayer, you can't get a better commander in battle than that. Now, they say it's calmed down a little bit, but I can tell you, it's still absolutely amazing. We're still taking sniper fire, so they want us to get down here because even though we don't have as much incoming in the way of major munitions, the 82mm mortars, which they've used, also some big, I should say, artillery pieces. They have had these D-30s, which attached us the other night. Unbelievable weapons, very big noise, very unnerving, even for experienced Marines to have those land as close as they can. Now, these snipers can take you out at 3,000-4,000 feet if they're really, really good. These guys are not really good, but they can probably take you out at 1,000 feet, and they certainly have that range. So now they have asked us to duck down behind what they call an Amtrak. There's the Cobra. The Cobra's still standing off, still a little worried that there might be something to take that Cobra out. You talk about all of the fighter jets that come in overhead, and, people are grateful for those in terms of taking out really big pieces of artillery. But when it comes to taking out house-to-house like this, when you have snipers, when you have tanks like this that are hidden in buildings or hidden as this one, very well protected, it really takes boots on the ground to do this. A lot of people have sort of second-guessed the U.S. military out here in terms of its ability to take on the Republican Guard. Tactically, they feel they're fools. Now, that's a bullet that just hit the back of our Humvee. Just came in, almost hit, we're literally within about 3 inches of hitting the Colonel. Colonel, that was a bullet that just, you may want to get behind the van there. It's just unbelievable here to be in the thick of battle. They want this, 6 behind it, we're going to want to find this sniper. All right, Gunner. Okay.
Bob?
Okay, Gunner, Tom Parks, hold on just 1 second.
Bob, if you can hear me, tell me, can you eyeball or estimate how many Marines are involved right now in this firefight? Bob Arnott, can you still hear me? It would seem the signal has been lost there. That is incredibly dramatic. We're going to try and reconnect with him, but for the better part of 20 minutes, everyone, you have listened to war at its most fiercest. This is a battle that was being waged by the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines as they were trying to secure a bridge crossing the river, this in Al Qut. I'm being joined right here by Marine Lieutenant General Bernard Traynor, a Marine himself, obviously. General, tell me, this kind of thing, the kind of battle that you've seen, nothing new to what the Marines would encounter nor expect. It was remarkable, Bob Arnott's description of their attitude.
Well, it sounded very familiar, to tell you the truth, and the adrenaline was starting to pump in my blood, too. Yeah, this is at Al Qut. They're crossing the Euphrates River, or rather the Tigris River. And they're facing the Baghdad Republican Guard unit, and this is what's known as a meeting engagement, where both sides come together and clash, and that's what's happening. It wasn't an ambush. When
you talk about coming together, how closely coming together? I mean, are you able to literally visualize the enemy? Can you perhaps stare one another down eye to eye in a situation? Because it is midday. Yeah, they're going to have clear viewing.
They're probably within 500 yards of one another at the closest. You really don't see them, because I mean, rarely do you see an enemy, because he's not stupid enough to put his head up. But you will get a shot at him. You see where the fire is coming from, and you concentrate your fire on that particular point. Now, they're taking AK-47 fire, so they're probably within 500 yards. They're probably somewhere in the vicinity of 150, 200 yards, and they're taking mortar fire, and they're taking RPG fire. So it's a close-in combat at this point.
General, I'm told that we have Bob Arnott back on the phone with us. Bob, can you hear me? And if you can, Bob.
Yes, I can. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Bob, we were asking the number of Marines involved in this firefight right now. Can you guess on this?
Oh, how many Marines are involved here? Okay, we have about 8 behind us here, mortars. Right here, we're in a pin-down position. There are about, I'd say, 6 of us here with an Amtrak and 2 Humvees. It's pretty loud out here. I can't hear you as well because my hearing is been, I think, affected a little bit by these extremely loud weapons. There's shoot. Tom Parks, he's got his binoculars. He's calling in the fire. We have Johnson, Taco. They're already. We really got to know and trust these Marines with our lives, as you can imagine. It's an important battle. As you know, the 1st Marines yesterday bridged the Tigris River. Now, there are a series of what they call feints, drawing the Iraqis off so that this was possible. Now, tremendous firepower in the background. All of them are up. You see the buildings in front of us just lit up in smoke. The key was... Jesus Christ. Wow. Just tremendous percussion from these guns here. They've come up Route 7, they're on Route 6, they're on their way to Baghdad. The Marines are very aggressive out there. They want to be in the thick of it. They're absolutely in the thick of it. Everybody is down here on the they've all got before when they said the Colonel said when you were to calm, there's no calm any longer. Everybody who has a gun is shooting. Everybody who has a gun is shooting all positions. North, west, east.
Bob, do you
now
feel...
you can hear the background.
Bob, are the actions right now more on the offensive or the defensive from the Marines?
Well, the Iraqis here, because they're in a defended position, have some advantage. There are a series of buildings around us. They're 1- and 2-story buildings. They have a bridge there. I can see tremendous fire in the background now. So we're not in vehicles. We're out in the open. Of course, they have sniping positions. Overall, tactically, do they have any chance? Absolutely not. You know, could the Marines take casualties? They're very, very careful out here, having firing line, making sure that they don't accidentally shoot at each other. I see a fire coming up in the background over here. There's smoke. It looks like a scene out of Apocalypse Now. I mean, I've seen a lot of war movies, but there's just nothing like this in terms of the width and scope of this. There are M1, A1 tanks ahead of us trying to provide cover, Amtraks where we are. Now, you probably hear some Arabic in the background. The translators saying, give up your life. You're about to lose your life. You're about to die. Don't die for Saddam Hussein. Now is the time to come out. Come out now. Save your children. Save your wife. All along the route, what's interesting is we have lots of people who were willing to give up. But right, we're running into, and this is an important thing,
what they're doing right now is
General, right.
They're building up their firepower. This is what happens when you're in engagement like that. You build up your firepower to suppress the enemy, and when you do that, you maneuver around them and destroy them. So that's what's going on right now. That's why this concentration of fire is going in, just rifle, machine gun fire, tank fire, and from the helicopters overhead. You build up fire superiority to suppress the enemy, and then you send your attacking force in to destroy them.
And these are Cobra gunships?
They're using Cobra gunships right now, yeah.
Okay.
And they probably even call in Harriers if they want some heavy bombs to go down on there.
They could call for that sort of reinforcement, and then that can just come in and obliterate with a bomb.
That's right.
The opposition there.
The Marine Corps operates an air-ground team. They have their own aviation, so they not only have the Cobra gunships, but they have the FA-18, like the one that was shot down today from the carrier, but they also have the Harrier, which was the vertical takeoff and landing, and they're on call at all times. So if they feel that they need something heavier than what they have on the scene, they can call that in.
Thank you, General. Bob, I understand you're back with us, which is good. I was going to ask you this question, Bob. How safe are you? Because you mentioned earlier you were out there without a helmet on.
Well, here's the thing. If there's an inbound mortar or a rocket shell or rocket grenade, you're dead. There's nothing you do. You're just dead. In terms of, inbound rifle fire, they have much better flak vests than we have and much better helmets. We are behind an Amtrak and a Jeep here. Tom was just saying that these people have a real will to fight. He has just taken on Iraqi. We saw his head explode in front of us. The other Iraqis took him. They took him back. They are not going to give up. These men are not going to give up. These are the roughest, toughest of the Republican Guard. They are now being assaulted by an M1A1 tank. There's 62-millimeter mortar behind me here. An AT-4 has been shot in at them. But what's interesting is how judicious the U.S. Marines are. If they have a shot, they'll shoot. But they do not want to take any civilian casualties here. They're not going to just blow up this building. Women and children are allowed to leave. And, of course, when you look at these women with tears in their eyes, just this terrible kind of fright, being in a situation like this, it just, is it going to fit? Okay, we have tanks coming in over here. Now, this is sort of like being at the Alamo and then having the cavalry come in. We're looking at a series of M1A1 tanks coming in here to start taking out these positions. The U.S. Marines are light. These Amtraks are pretty light vehicles. These are the same ones taken out in Al-Nazariya. You remember when an RPG took one out, killed a number of U.S. Marines. They realized how vulnerable they are. Just came in. You can see the rockets streaking across the sky. They're very grateful to have these tanks in. They're coming down the other side of the road. And it is like in the movies, watching the U.S. Marines come. We have 3 of them coming slowly along the side of the road. These, of course, the M1A1 tanks.
Bob, you're talking about the Baghdad Republican Guard, which we know has been considerably decimated already by these airstrikes and ground forces moving in. You're talking about how tenacious they are. Can you give us any idea of the numbers that you're battling right now?
Okay, I can just hear part of that because these weapons are going out in between the different parts of your questions. I did get, what about the Baghdad Division of the Republican Guard? You see, everybody talks about attriting forces. They all talk about the Air Force coming overhead and dropping bombs and whatnot and attriting them. But, you know, we learned from Kosovo. We learned from Serbia. We learned from many recent battles, including Afghanistan, that when you look at those battle damage assessments, there's a lot of stuff that's still out there. These people have a tremendous will to fight. They are the vaunted Baghdad Division of the Republican Guard. Tom, what are you saying here?
Seeing tanks come up. The colonel just instructed me to set them in right here.
Okay, we're going to set tanks in now. Let me just describe kind of the position we're on, like a 2-lane, not super high, but a 2 lanes that you could travel north or southbound on here. This is Highway 7 leading into the city. Okay. They're instructing to come over on the other side. What are you going to do, sir? Tell me what you're doing. What's that? What are you doing?
We're just loading up our mortars, getting them inside.
Okay, now they're loading up on mortars to bring the mortars in here. Here's the situation. We are standing back probably, I'd say 150 feet from a whole series of tan buildings. Probably about, 500-600 feet long. They're old-style buildings. They don't have windows in them at all. This is where the attack is coming from. It's where the Republican Guard is holed up. So, in terms of counterattack, we have just two, actually. Abrams tanks that are coming along here. Behind us here, whole series of U.S. Marines. They now have their mortars, and they're ready. Oops. The back of the Amtrak is coming down here, ready to unload some more equipment, ready for the counterattack. A very sort of precise way that they go about this. You know, this is, a lot of us will sort of improvise in battle, and they do the improvisation they have to do, but they understand their tactics. Now these Marines are loading up. They're going to load up this Amtrak to go right at them. They're going to stick to them. They're saying, excuse us. Here, there. Move, they're saying. Where are you off to? What are you doing here, sir?
We're getting back in the freaking track. We're getting back in the track.
Okay, they're getting back to the track. These U.S. Marines with mortars. Now that the tanks have arrived and their lives have been on the line, they're getting back in so that they can be safe inside the Amtrak. Now, these are huge howitzers here. The tanks are brought in for this reason. You remember from Mogadishu, the terrible sort of Black Hawk Down incident. You remember in Al-Nasiriyah how those Amtraks were taken out with simple RPG fire. Well, this roll-build armor, RMA, that's the amount of protection you have in an Abrams tank. My recollection is correct from one of Tom Clancy's books. It's over 400 inches. There's nothing they have that can go through that tank, and that's why they brought the tanks in. They can sit here and they can pummel them. Very important that the tanks have come, because this now allows these Marines to take cover, to get back in their Amtrak, to get the M16s and the light weapons out of the way and let the big boys really sort of take over. Still not safe enough for the Cobras. They'll want to get these M1, A1 tanks into position, start to take fire, and once they've done that, you hear that big thud in the background. That's what they call the king of battle. We have 155 millimeter howitzers out here. They're unbelievable weapons, very, very loud, a variety of different kinds of projectiles. They can illuminate around at night. They what are called RAPs. These are rocket-assisted projectiles that are able to go many kilometers longer than conventional artillery. But what's interesting about this is you don't see an F-16s out here. There are no F-18s out here. There are no F-15s out here. There is no Air Force out here. It's too dangerous. It's too much in the way of anti-aircraft fire. Too much in the way of sand. They can't come in low enough, and that means the grunts on the ground have got to be able to handle the situation. They can do that with artillery. Artillery is precise enough to hit the middle of a 55-gallon tank from 10, 15 miles away. So they're starting to aim what they call the kings of battle. But one thing you have out here is what they call fire lines. You want to make sure that you don't have a friendly fire incident. They're very, very fearful of hurting their own Marines out here. And so they'll line this all up to make sure that they're only shooting at the enemy. They'll take their time. Now, a lot of criticism of U.S. Marines maybe not moving fast enough. But you know what? They're going to take the time so they don't lose lives. They could make a crazy assault on this compound. They could all run in there and take a lot of casualties. But they do it in a very meticulous way. Very methodical, meticulous way. Now, Tom Box is running out here. He's all alone. He's running behind that tank to really give him instructions. Tom has seen the play-by-play on this. He knows where the snipers have been. He knows where the men are that brought back the individual that he killed. He's running up this tank to give him sort of personal instructions on how to take this out. And I got to tell you, Tom is one of the most famous Marines in the Corps, Tom Parks. He is the weapons, one of the weapons company leaders out here. Just tremendous self-confidence, giving all these Marines a sort of boost. You've got to remember, a lot of these are 18 and 19-year-old kids are out in the thick of battle for the very first time, just doing a remarkable job, but doing a remarkable job because of the leadership of the Corps. You know, amazing leadership that, you know, they've been out here 20, 25 years. I want to just go back here to the battle commander. Sir, just tell me how things are going, if you will.
We have a little break in the signal right here from Bob Arnott. For those of you who are joining us, we have passed the quarter hour here. It's 1:48 here in the morning on the East Coast. You are listening to a raging battle right now. It is going on in the town of Al-Qut as members of the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines are trying to take a bridge crossing the Tigris River. Al-Qut is southeast of Baghdad. You see on your screen right there. Bob Arnott is our MSNBC chief foreign correspondent. He's been embedded with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. This has again been about 35 minutes now of this raging firefight. We've been taking it live for you. We know, at least at this point, that as safe as Bob Arnott can be, he is. He has donned his helmet, he said. Let's continue to listen in on the action.
Okay, now, we have a battle commander here who just spoke to you here. He's looking at a map of the city. He knows where the different Republican Guard elements are. Now, listen in. Through the Arabic here, we have a translator here. Again, he's saying, give up, give up. You're going to lose your life. What's extraordinary is he said it again and again. Give up, they won't give up. Now, Taco, who's our machine gunner here, is just cleaning off the top of his Humvee. Listen to this. Listen to all those cartridges. I mean, that's probably more ammo than he's ever fired in his life. Tom, tell me, we can protect your photographer. Oh, she's going to move forward to protect the photographer here, which seems like a very good idea. Hey, Jim, your direct line of fire. Come back over here. I don't want you to get shot. All right, now this is a John Wayne part of the move here. Oops, our Humvee has just run off the road. It's stuck. Hopefully we'll get it back around here. Having these tanks in here has given everyone a great deal of reassurance. But amazingly enough, there are civilians walking between the tank and the compound here. But also a couple of soldiers are surrendering. There are two of them coming out. They have a big white flag. They're not running. They're coming out very, very slowly, and the Marines are in no hurry to run up to them as they had in the past. They'll let them walk out slowly. This is the first time that there may be any kind of surrender. Now, what the Republican Guards have done in the past, this is like the NKVD during World War II, where the Soviets had a whole division that would shoot you if you were not willing to engage in the battle. These are not being shot in the back of the head. Now, we do have some civilians. I'm just looking at some kids that are waving. They have a dog. There's a little baby in their hand. They're walking out towards us here. Obviously, very, very frightened. They want to make certain that they don't have anything in the way of bombs or that they have anything with us. They are just, it's a woman, it's her husband. They have a couple of dogs. It looks like a family. They're smiling. The woman here is just absolutely scared to death. Let's just put them in the foxhole. Salam alaikum. Ahlan wa sahlan. Okay, salam. Okay, in here. Ajlis, okay? Now, you're going to get hit. Come on. Come down here. I want you in this hole. Get in this foxhole. Come here. Come on. I want you in here. Take the baby. Get the baby in here. It's very dangerous. It's okay. Listen. Get in here. Get in. Come on. In here. Down in the hole. You'll be safe. Okay? Ajlis. Okay? Okay? This poor girl is just crying. She's terrified. There's a foxhole here. Okay. The colonel has come out. We'll make him say, okay. Tell me. Yes. Elite Antasab Ila Sayara. Okay? Here. Come here. She's crying. Just a pathetic situation here.
Bob, you said this is a husband-wife. They have a baby with them as well, with you in this foxhole?
Yes, this woman actually is holding my hand. She's hugging me. She's so frightened. Let me just describe what we have here. We have a woman. She looks like about 21 years old. It's Muki. Hadra. She says her name is Hadra. That's what the husband's name is. It's Muka. Lahila. Ismi Tabib Bob. Anasahati wa Tabib. I'm telling you, I'm a journalist and a doctor. We have with us two other gentlemen here. It looks like a 10-year-old boy. Nure is the and let's just ask how old they're. Let's say what? 3 years old, little baby. Obviously, never seen anything like this. There's a 3-year-old. Hey, is Muki? Adra is a beautiful looking girl with brown eyes. She has a black scarf on, a traditional robe here. Just absolutely terrified. She's hugging me. Now there's a smile. She realized that she has U.S. Marines surrounding her and protecting her from being killed. Just a remarkable situation here. We're now behind a berm. It's by no means safe. We are opposite now from that building. Just an absolutely incredible movement. Let me just ask them if they want anything here. Yes, I've asked them whether they want any water. They said that they would like to have some water.
Bob, Bob, as this family approached you, were they running to you, or were they walking in the midst of this firefight? How is it they escaped injury?
Well, the U.S. Marines will not fire at civilians. They will not fire at civilians.
Well,
they came a long route here. Now, we actually have, hold on, Chris, we have the colonel who's in charge here. Colonel, just give me your name. Tell me what you're doing here with these civilians. We're on live American television.
I'm Colonel Joe Dowdy with one of the regimental combat teams in the 1st Marine Division, and we're just securing some folks here from enemy fire and then trying to compel the enemy soldiers that remain in there to come on out. We'll take good care of them. We'll protect them and safeguard them. And I think the fire is lessened as a result.
I'll tell you what's amazing here is a U.S. Marine colonel who's in charge of this whole regiment, who personally has come down here with us in this trench to make certain that these civilians are taken care of. He's telling them, you're safe, you're going to be fine. Now, we have Tom Barks. Tom has come out here with humanitarian daily rations for them. Okay? Arada? Asha? Okay, would you like lunch or dinner? We have humanitarian rations here. Tom, let me just explain what these are to them.
Maybe for people with the tank.
Here's some food for you right here.
Bob, have you moved? Bob, have you moved from a foxhole? You mentioned, are you behind a building now? Where are you specifically?
Okay, here's specifically what happened. The building with the Republican Guard where this family walked out from, believe it or not. They walked out, they walked across very slowly, and there was a distance between the U.S. Marines and the building. Probably stupidly, I ran out to, or walked out to them to show that, I was not in any great hurry. Walked out to them. This woman came and she embraced me with just tears in her eye, tremendous sort of fear. She now has her hand over her eyes. She's crying and crying and crying. I took them and I put them into a foxhole there out in front of the Marine position, and the colonel himself, concerned about this family, told us all to basically stand down behind what he called a berm. We're the side of the road, and a berm is a big sand mound out here, so it puts us out of the line of direct fire. Now I'm looking at a little boy, Ismuka. Oh, just a artillery shell just landed, and they jumped at the sight of it. Let me just ask this little boy his name is Ismuka. Ma? Ma, he's his name. All right, come Ruha. Come. Umbra. Gosh. So it's hard to understand dialect here, but I believe he's saying that he's 9 years old. He's a little boy. He's on his way to school here. Let me just look at what he has. He has a little sort of folder. He's nicely dressed. He has the rest of his family here. There's also a girl about, I'd say, 8 or so. Jim is capturing all of this on tape here, so you'll be able to see it later. There is a little girl, very, very cute little girl. She's 3 years old. Her daddy is there. He's trying to tie her shoe, but the shoelaces come out. They just really can't believe their good luck that they now are safe. You know what they've done here, and it's a really hideous thing, is that they've taken women and children like this, and they've used them as hostages. It seems clear, of course, we have to finish the reporting here, but it seems clear that they were held as hostages, and for whatever reason were able to escape. A terrifying situation. This girl is still crying, just horrified at what's happened. I'm going to help her open her meal. Let me just tell you what we have here. It's a humanitarian daily ration, and they're a little hard to open. They're like the meals ready to eat. They may be a little unfamiliar with all this food here. Take me a minute to just try and open this up. And it has in there enough really to subside for the whole day. They'll have a little chicken. In fact, this one is chicken. تريد أن تأكل لحم بقر أو لحم دجاج؟ دجاج. She wants chicken or beef. She says it doesn't matter, and she's laughing at how silly it is to offer a choice of what kind of meal she might have out here in the middle of this. Now you can hear that they want other people to give up. Now, risking their own lives, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 U.S. Marines. Sir, U.S. Marine, you're out here guarding Iraqi civilians. What do you think about your task here?
Well, I know what we're doing is right. You can tell by the way these people look. They're scared. We're not fighting the Iraqi people. We're here to liberate and help them, and you can just tell on their faces. I feel like we're doing a lot of good out here.
And Sir Marine, what's your name?
The name's Corporal Vettel from Illinois.
Corporal Vettel is out here, and his job now is to protect these civilians. They can see a Cobra helicopter in the background here. I'm going to try and open this humanitarian rifle with my teeth here. They're very hard to open up. Now, the battle has calmed some. No, it hasn't. I'm sorry, it hasn't. They're taking substantial incoming fire at U.S. Marines. Let me just stand up and see what's happening here.
11 p.m. Pacific time. It is also 11 a.m. in the morning. For the better part of 45 minutes, we've been covering what has been a raging firefight being efforted by the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, part of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. This is the attempt to take control of a bridge crossing the Tigris River in the city of Al-Qut, that is southeast of the capital of Baghdad. MSNBC Chief Foreign Correspondent Bob Arnott has been certainly right in the middle of the thick of things. He has just helped some of the Marines help 5 civilians, it seems like to me, come into the safety of the Marines, offering them humanitarian aid. I want to throw it back to you, Bob, right now. Give me a recap of the battle, if you can, what you've been witnessing for the last 45 minutes.
All right, now, that was a Hellfire missile that just went overhead. There's a U.S. Marine Cobra helicopter. These Hellfire missiles are tank killers. And that is the powerful 20-millimeter cannon of the Cobra. The Cobra is now in the fight. The way the Marines operate out here, it's the ground troops who have to make sure that the Cobra isn't getting killed itself, because anti-aircraft fire can take it out. There are rocket-propelled grenades that could hit it, just like it hit those helicopters in Black Hawk Down. So we came up here, it launched overhead, Oh, there's another incoming over here on the left-hand side, so they're still able to return some fire. The Cobra's circling around with this Hellfire missile, tremendous sort of whiz and then impact. In all of this, you can hear the Arabic in the background still saying clearly, surrender, surrender, you're going to die, your friends are dying, your friends are dead around you. Look at them, they're dead. Leave now. But they won't leave now. So this is what they're up against. Now, tactically, big picture out here. The U.S. Marines have been in these skirmishes. They think that they use very poor tactics. But you know what they do? Jesus. Right. Is that incoming or outgoing? Okay, that was an outgoing. Jesus Christ! Wow! Whoa! You have never seen a sight like that. That's a here. Come here. This girl wants me to check. Come here. I'm gonna protect you. Come here.
Bob, what was that? Was that a Hellfire missile, Bob, being launched from one of those Cobra gunships?
I'm sorry, with all the fire, I can't quite hear you here. There's a girl, she looks like she's 13 years of age, and I'm hugging her here. She feels much more secure with me here. And these Hellfire missiles, I've never actually seen one fired before. You can see the rocket, the black end of it, and you have this fire coming out the other end. It's like a missile launch, very, very fast. There's another position. This poor girl is now holding my hand here. She can hear the rocket fire coming in, and it's Jesus, unbelievable. Those are all Hellfire missiles from the Cobra. The Cobra's only about, I'd say, 200 feet from me, all shooting into that position. Just absolutely remarkable. This poor girl, let me just ask your name again. Ruki. Mazda? Jim, let's get that shot of the Cobra there. Jim Bruton, is a veteran engineer. He's been all around the world. He's out here also shooting pictures for us, which you'll see later in the day if we ever get out of here. But this girl, just a very, very beautiful face, very, very worried in her sort of traditional dress. As her savior here. Of course, we're not. It's the U.S. Marines who are really her savior, but just so grateful that they really were saved from almost certain death out there in the middle of all of this. She has her pocketbook there. What's really incredible is this little 3-year-old girl. Jim, come over here for a second if you don't mind. Look, here's this little 3-year-old girl. She has a big smile on her face. She has no idea what's going on. Her T-shirt says Protos de Rivière. It's a French T-shirt, which is a little paradoxical out here. She has a fig bar here. It looks like a fig bar. It's a little silver container. It's like eating a Pop-Tart back in the U.S. So she's sort of being introduced to American junk food here in the middle of battle. So the dogs look happy here.
It's an extraordinary picture. You're painting, Bob. Bob, first, I'd like for you to recap, if you can, for us, that which we've been seeing for the last 50 minutes or so, this live firefight. Can you just break it down for us quickly as to what kind of ammunition you've been facing there against the Baghdad Republican Guard? And also, let us know once again, Bob, if you are safe where you are right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're not safe. When we get hit by a rocket or a mortar, it's all over. I mean, this is in a battle like this. There's nothing you can do. We are behind a berm here, which provides cover from rifle fire. But in a battle like this, it's not the sniper shot or the rifle fire that's likely to kill you. NBC actually sent us through this hazardous environment training. Sure, a very good sniper could take you out. You try to duck from those. But in terms of incoming mortar or artillery, the other night we had 6 mortar shells coming about 300 feet from where we were. Could easily have killed us, and it unnerved even the most seasoned Marines. But let me give you the recap that you asked for. What's happened here is that the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force has bridged the Tigris River. Very dramatic move. They took 2 pontoons that went across the river, and they had another bridge that they took that they've been able to get troops across. They've cut off the Army from going north-south out to Basra and back. The Baghdad Division of the Republican Guard is right here in this town. This town is called Al-Qut. We came up Highway 7. They took Al-Hayz the other day. Now they are in this town that's called Al-Qut. If you look at it on the map, it's really. You want some water? Okay, well, I'm going to get you some. Just a minute here. Sorry. You're going to have to get her some water. Jim, we see if we can get them some water. It's going to be hard. No, we better not. Well, Jim, it's not worth risking your life for some water. We'll have to get them. They'll have to wait a little bit for the water. So tactically, the idea was that they wanted to stop the Republican Guard from being able to retreat out of Al-Qut, and that's what we've been able to do. They cannot retreat out of Al-Qut. They're boxed in. Obviously, I cannot give you the whole tactical strategic plan because that's part of the ground rules, and also would endanger our lives. And we told you what the overall plan was. Just where we are here, it's a key bridge. They've been able to maintain that bridge. The Marines want to make certain that they have contained and killed this Baghdad division of the Republican Guard. Now, what's also important about this historically is the U.S. really hasn't gone up against the Republican Guard since '91, and they haven't ever gone up against them when they're defending their capital city, Baghdad. So this is the first real test of how well the Republican Guard will do against the U.S. Marines. And at this point, they, you know, they're not out foxing, they're not out maneuvering. We don't see tanks that are suddenly sort of crushing in on our position. They're not really on the offense against us, but because they're dug in, and very cleverly along the side of the road as we came in this morning, they had berms, they had foxhole positions. They would walk around in civilian uniforms, and you cannot believe how quickly they would drop out of those Guard uniforms, the Republican Guard tan uniforms, black berets. They would drop out of those. They'd be in civilian clothing. They'd run, and of course they'd be trapped by the U.S. Marines. Now, a number of these civilians here are still sort of jumping at the sound of this gunfire here. The others, I think, have already sort of gotten used to it at this point. It becomes almost normal after a while. So in the big range of things, remember the Marines have been able to cut off the south and southeast. He cannot reinforce. He can't bring troops up or down to Basra, into Baghdad. He's unable to bring troops up or down to Nasiriyah. That's all cut off. And what's happening in town after town around here, especially the black towns, is that people 3 or 4 days ago were very reticent to embrace us. I shouldn't say us, but the U.S. Marines. Now they're much more willing to embrace the U.S. Marines. And just this morning, just the look, oh, wow, they hit about 300 feet from me. You see black smoke sort of coming out of the side of this building. So they do have our position in. What they do, like a lot of militaries, is they bracket us. They shoot left, they shoot right, they come closer and closer until they actually have hit you. So we have had 2 mortars that have come in really to the south, 2 that have come into the north, so they're trying to really bracket in on our position to be able to hit us right here. The U.S. Marines have what's called counter-battery radar. They can look at all incoming mortar fire, all incoming artillery fire, then they range that and they go to kill it. They can kill it with the 155 millimeter howitzers that are just outside of town. And what we're hearing now are just single shots here. I think that's a 40 Mike. There's another rocket launch there. There's a thing that they call the LAV. This is a light armored reconnaissance vehicle that the sort of fast reconnaissance people use, U.S. Marines use. And what they do is they blow into town at 60 to 80 miles an hour. The locals call it the destroyer. They are terrified of this. Also interesting is you listen to the Marines talk to each other on the radio. They have call signs like Inshan or Terminator or Apocalypse or Tail Rider. You know, they do love to run into battle. But there's no hatred towards the Iraqis. There's no let's get them. And they've had standing orders, do not shoot unless you're shot at. Iraqi soldiers out there, lots of them, there was no pot shot at them, there was no attempt to shoot them unless they shot in at the U.S. Marines. So that they're really trying to be very, very judicious in terms of their use of fire. I've talked to a lot of commanders out here, and they really think that the tactics of the Republican Guard have been poor. They don't move well, they're bunkered in, they haven't got any of their tanks out into the battle. Of course, they have no air, a lot of them caught by surprise. Now, there's a building that's about 300 feet from right now, big black smoke that's billowing out of it. Again, this girl is just jumping. She's just terrified that she's going to get hit out here.
Bob, you talk about the tactics there of the Baghdad Republican Guard, but those that are remaining, how tenacious are they? Because earlier you were telling us there was some sort of broadcast being put out there, loudspeakers saying surrender, surrender, or you won't be hurt, surrender now. What was said in that message?
The message actually was dictated by General John Kelly, and he really is responsible for our being here, a very energetic commander. I was out by a tank the other day with another regiment. He came along, he said, Dr. Bob, I heard you on the Imus show the other day. He said, you want to come with me? And we went with him over to regimental headquarters. We said we wanted to be in the thick of battle. We were back with the command element the other day, watching how the commanders run the battle. They'll have all of the different sort of battle grids, giving permissions to fire. There's sort of a big picture. It's like a Super Bowl coach. Well, all of his men there, they have diagrams, just like football diagrams with end runs and in runs and who's going long and short, what the ground is. But then what we said is we wanted to be out with a battalion. We wanted to be in the thick of it and see what a real firefight was like. And that's why they gave us Tom Barks. They said, listen, he's experienced, he'll take you into battle, and that's exactly what they have done here with this battalion, is to take us into battle. I've talked to a lot of them about tactics. For instance, the other day they tried to ambush us when I was at RCT-7. And what they did is they had a whole line of mines along the side of the road, C4 explosives in the middle. They tried to do that to us this morning. U.S. Marines came along, they cleared all the mines so that we could get through there, and then they will have mortar positions along the side of the road, but they're fairly poorly put together. That is, even if they're well-dug trenches, what they do is they have the mortars too close together so that one shot can basically just take those out. Defensively here, what are they doing? They're in a building. And they have sniper rifles. Behind that, they have mortars. They have hidden in different positions in back of us on the side of the road, these 62-millimeter mortars. And you know where you find most of these? You find them in the Bath Party headquarters. In town after town, we've gone in with Marines. They go to Bath Party headquarters, and they have 14-millimeter anti-aircraft shells, 50-caliber weapons, 7.62 shells, which is a NATO round, or not shells, but cartridges. They also had just a mound of the 62-millimeter mortar shells. A lot of older weapons. As you come up here, you find that they have old AK-47s, 20, 30 years old, all well-greased, all in working order, the sights sort of knocked off. But as you get further forward here, you see better and better weapon systems. Now, paradoxically, at a command center this morning, I saw a radio that they had just destroyed. The radios they're finding are French radios, so that the French have sold them at least the command and control radios that we have seen out here so far. There's black smoke that's billowing up across here. And what we've done is gone from sort of a small arms fight to a big artillery battle out here. The big thick boom, that is their launch of their artillery. They have what's called a D-30. The D-30 is their medium-range artillery. And the Iraqis actually have pretty good artillery. They have a very long-range one that actually outranges many of the U.S. weapons. They've been terribly inaccurate. We spent a day, a couple of days ago with the what's called the Bravo Battalion, or Bravo Battery, which runs one of the big guns, the King of Battle. They can actually account for, with computer programming, the wind and even the spin of the Earth's surface to be able to hit something. So they're calling artillery strikes in. But what makes it so hard is you have Marines on the ground. You don't want to hit them. You've got to be very, very careful. You can't call in an F-16. You can't call in the Air Force. You can't have those great big bombs around here. You have to have absolute surgical precision to be able to take out, as they call them, the bad guys, and not end up hitting innocent civilians or end up hitting the Marines. Now, the Marines we're with have suddenly gotten their attention. They have their M16s up to the shoulder, and they are aiming, because it turns out that the side of the road that we're on is no longer safe. This side of the road is also taking incoming fire, and they are out there with their weapons, and they are ready to defend this fairly indefensible position where we are right now. The Cobras have gone. Again, this poor girl is just jumping every time. We have actually an interpreter here with us who speaks a little bit better Arabic than I am. And of course, what they're asking for are cigarettes. So you should see this poor girl. She just jumps up and goes, let me ooh.
Bob,
there's no fire missile just went in.
Bob, we are approaching the quarter hour. I'm going to take this moment to just recap for viewers who might be joining us right now. Welcome, everybody. I'm Alex Witt. It is 2:15 a.m. here on the East Coast, 11:15 a.m. in the morning in the Baghdad region. We have been watching for about an hour or so now. MSNBC Chief Foreign Correspondent Bob Arnott traveling with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. Specifically right now, he is with the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, who've been engaged in a raging firefight. This to attempt to secure a bridge crossing the Tigris River in the city of Al-Quth, that is southeast of Baghdad. He was chronicling for us over the past hour extraordinary incoming fire and outgoing fire on behalf of those Marines. Mortar shells, AK-47 rifles were heard, the incoming fire as well, bullets just whizzing overhead. He was standing next to one Marine at one point who pulled the pin from a grenade and lobbed it over. Also, there was evidence of Cobra helicopter gunships coming in. We heard at least 2 Hellfire missiles launched there against the Iraqi forces. We do know that he has taken on the Baghdad Republican Guard, members of which we do know from the Pentagon that the Baghdad Republican Guard has been significantly reduced in its efficacy to take on the U.S. forces as they approach Baghdad. Bob Arnott has also told us a very heartwarming story, which I'm going to have him get to now, about civilians that the Marines have taken into safety. These people braved their lives to get into the safety of the U.S. Marines there. Bob, bring us up to date on the status of this family. It includes some children and a mother and father as well, right?
Right. I'll tell you what I'm looking at. There are 2 men that I'd say in their early 20s who seem fairly calm on my left-hand side. We have no idea whether they were soldiers or not, whether they just come out of their uniforms. It's a little hard to tell. The family itself is a father who's probably only 35. It looks like he's 50 because life is so tough out here. He has a Nike Just Do It t-shirt on. The rest of his family's around him. There's a boy who's about 9 years old. Get down. 9-year-old. There's a, looks like a 14-year-old who seems fairly calm, holding on to her daddy, holding on to his shoulder. He's smoking a cigarette. The little girl, 3 years old, has a smile on her face. She is trying to work her way through what looks like an American Pop-Tart. there is a boy of about 18 who's sitting next to the younger. Jim is running back here from the line of fire. She looks like she's probably 13 years. Okay, now they're really worried. There's incoming fire into our position here, so we're going to have to move everybody out of here. So she has a nice black scarf with flowers on it. She has on a purple dress, sandals. She nervously has her left knee just sort of going back and forth, looking at me with a very anxious expression, really looking at me to sort of to save her or help her. Okay, now we're going to have to move here because we are taking incoming to this place. We want everybody to move. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Up. Come on. Here, come here. Let's go. Well, we got to take them with us. You have to take them with us. Come on. Let's go. Leave the dogs. Shoot the dogs if you need. Let's go. Come on. Let's move. Come on, quick. Give me the baby. Here. Give me the baby. Come here. She's here. Please, come on. We're going to get her out of the way here. Get down.
This is hard to listen to, everybody. Bob Arnott is attempting right now to help this family, these civilian Iraqis who approached the Marines for cover of safety just a short while ago. They've been with him for about a half an hour or so. Bob has been telling us there's a mother, a father. He just mentioned an 18-year-old for the first time. There is a baby. We heard that right there. I believe Bob grabbed that baby and said, come with us. Apparently the position where they were was taking some incoming fire. There is a 3-year-old, I believe. He also talked about a 9 or 10-year-old little boy who brought with him a school book. Let's keep in mind it is Thursday morning. It is approaching noon there, but it could be that this little boy was just going on his way to school. Evidence of how war rages around a city that tries to continue some semblance of normalcy. Bob, are you still with us? Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you, and we're now leaving this position. They're going to try and fix the bridge, and they have secured a safe position for these kids. They give them lots of daily rations here. They will be safe, and the Marines are not going to make their way into battle. They're saying, get back into the car. We're getting back in, and we're going to move here.
Where have you gone, Bob? You were near a building. Formerly, you were in a foxhole for safety. Where are you now?
Okay, originally I was on the side of the road. We were all basically on the tarmac in the Amtrak and by a Humvee. I then ran down the road towards the bridge where the civilians were, pulled them back into a foxhole that was literally about a foot off the side of the road. This is a foxhole originally dug to protect the Iraqis. When the Marines saw us out there, they asked, they saw there was an unsafe position and asked us to come back in. So I came back down with the family, went down the side of the road right by the foxhole. There's a little sort of water spout there. And that's where all the Hellfire missiles have been coming in. I see a big black fire burning maybe 300 feet from us. Now we moved them up over a road about 50 feet back. They're sitting down there. They're smiling. They look a lot happier. And
John Mayer gave them rations. Made sure they had water.
All right. Lieutenant Colonel John Mayer is, of course, our commanding officer here. They have water. They have food. They are safe. And the Marines are now going to move forward here. Tom, what's the next move here?
Next move, we're going to withdraw a little bit. And we're going to move back a little bit, lick our wounds, and then do whatever Lieutenant Colonel Mayer tells us.
Okay, so that's what they want us to go. Yes? Okay, here's the plan. This is on live TV. Can you give it on TV? Or here we go. Plan. Draw to prepare for further operations elsewhere. The tanks are being left in place here. The bridge is secured, and I'm going to sign off for now and call you back as soon as we are at our next position.
We accomplished our...
Oh, sorry. Can you hold on just one? Are you still with me here?
Yes, we are, Bob. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me just put the colonel on.
We accomplished our tactical mission by successfully blocking the bridges so no traffic can move to the east. And now we've done it for the length of time designated. We're pulling back to our positions from last night to await further orders to continue the attack or to move into a different offensive posture. Over.
Okay, now I want to be sure that that's all we can tell you. This is all be part of a much bigger game plan. We don't want to give any of that game plan away, what bridge it is, where it is. We're doing this very carefully in terms of making sure that there's nothing that's getting out that would help the enemy in any way. Obviously, the enemy knows we're here because we're shooting at them, and the Marines are shooting at them, and there's fire coming back from them. So that's the situation. Want to say something else, Colonel?
We're just repositioning to a different location. The situation's well in hand. The only firing you hear now is rounds being cooked off from an ammo storage point just about 200 meters away. But it's well in hand. The Marines have taken it, and we've held it, and now it's time to move somewhere else.
Okay, so the bottom line is that the fire has died off. The firefight is at an end. We hear no more incoming. The only light fire here now is from an ammo dump burning off. That will, of course, leave some Amtrak's here to hold the bridge, but the Marines have been able to accomplish their mission, and they are going to now move on to their next battle, and we'll call you from there.
All right, MSNBC's Bob Arnott, do stay safe. Thank you. It has been an extraordinary hour plus, everyone. Just to recap what we were witnessing there, MSNBC Chief Foreign Correspondent Bob Arnott was with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, specifically the unit right here, the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines. They have successfully, as the Marine was just telling us on the phone, quote, established our tactical mission. We have secured the bridge. We do not know what bridge it is. We do know, however, that it is in the city of Al-Qut. It is crossing the Tigris River there. Al-Qut being a city that is southeast of Baghdad, but a key city to get en route there to Baghdad. They were opposing members of the Baghdad Republican Guard, that which we know from the Pentagon as being severely reduced in its ability to be very effective against the U.S. troops. I'm joined here by former Marine Lieutenant General Bernard Traynor. In addition, I'm joined from the Pentagon right now by MSNBC's Carl Rochelle. Carl, I want to bring you in right here. Were you listening to this, and what are you thinking about it?
Oh, gee, Alex, I was glued to the TV, and not only that, I went across the hall. You don't know how the building's laid out, but there's a place called DDI, the Directorate for Defense Information. It's up and operating across the hall, and said, guys, you've got to turn your TV on to MSNBC and turn up the sound. They had it on. They usually have a wedge up with 4 on. They popped up the sound on it, and everyone that I see is glued to the TV listening to this. It was incredible, the firefight, and you could tell from listening to Bob Arnott that he was so enmeshed in what was going on. It fascinated me. Apparently he speaks the language. I didn't realize that because he was talking to the family and asking them their name and what they wanted, and they told him they wanted water. Just absolutely fascinating to be in the middle of this. And it's interesting that he pointed out, Alex, that it is such a microcosm. Where he was is an incredible fight, and 2 miles away, 3 miles away, there may be absolutely nothing going on.
Yeah, Carl, was there any sort of apprehension on behalf of the Pentagon as to what was being broadcast? Of course, we're very, very careful about not broadcasting anything that might compromise the safety of any sort of mission that's undergoing at that time. Any concerns at all by the Pentagon?
Absolutely not. Comments like, boy, he's in it. That's real. That's the way it sounds. And, you know, and I chuckled when he said, you know, I've been to a lot of war movies, and this isn't like any war movie, and I heard a lot of chuckles around the place. But no, there was no concern that he was revealing, because interestingly enough, this is exactly what they want. He is reporting what he is seeing. He's in the middle of, you know, it's like covering a fire. You're talking about the building that's burning down. You don't spend a lot of time telling people where the building is, and, you know, it's just, here's what's happening, folks. Here's what I'm seeing, and here's what it looks like to me. And, you know, it's some of the language, it's interesting. I'm listening to him, and he's, at one point, he's apologizing about using the comments of the colonel or general that made the comment about Baghdad, and the next minute you're hearing him say, Jesus Christ, what was that? Whoa! And that was a hellfire, and they do. I mean, if you hear them, they're very, very loud, and it really does get your attention. It was such fascinating reporting, and it is so good, I think, to be in the middle of that, and thank God no one around him was hurt. Absolutely, Carl. I want to get to the humanitarian aspect of this first, so hang on just a moment, because I do want to bring in, prior to that now, Bernard Traynor, Marine Lieutenant General. Lieutenant General, you were watching this, and your adrenaline was going watching this too, wasn't it? I mean, it just... right back in that firefight. Absolutely. Is this kind of a textbook for the front lines of Marines when they're right in the thick of things? Yeah, now, as near as I could gather from what he said, they were on Highway 7, and the bridge was going over the Tigris River, and there was apparently an industrial area, a couple of 100 yards off the road,
And as they approached it, apparently the Republican Guard was hiding in these series of buildings and opened fire on the Marines with AK-47s, with RPGs, with the rocket-propelled grenades, and also with mortars. And then they took them under fire. They took the Republican Guard under fire with their own machine guns and own rifles. And then they brought up some tanks. And in addition to that, they had a Cobra gunship on station. And it was the one that was firing the Hellfire missiles, but it was also firing machine guns. But then when the tanks came up there, the whole thing, apparently they suppressed the fire, and the Republican Guards were either killed or they get out of there.
Can you give us a quick description of what it's like to witness a Hellfire missile being launched? Because audibly, we heard Bob Arnott just saying, Jesus, he really said it was an extraordinary thing to witness. Honestly, I've never seen one of them go off. But yeah, there's a big whoosh. It's like a rocket, except it's a big one, and it's anti-tank, and also blows up bunkers. So they were in a concrete warehouse of some sort, and the missile just hit it and took it out. General, I thank you for your insights. We're going to take a short break, everybody, in just a couple of seconds here. We're going to come back and go back to Carl Rochelle at the Pentagon. Let's talk about the humanitarian aspect of what we've been witnessing for the last hour and 15 minutes here. There are civilians now in the safety of the U.S. Marines. We're coming right back.
Listen, Tom Marks is one of the best battle veterans out here, one of the best people you could ever go into combat with, and we are absolutely in the thick of it. Overhead bullets, RPGs, there's a rocket-propelled grenade, 82mm mortars, all incoming. Outbound, an AT-4, which just took out a T-55 tank. Behind me, U.S. Marines with their mortars. They're all nailed down here. We are surrounded on virtually every side, except, of course, there is an exit here, but these Marines are not going to retreat. They're going to take this bridge, and they are going to hold the bridge.
All right, thank you so much. That was Lester Holter. Pardon me, MSNBC's Bob Arnott right there. We're getting word just into us right now. Military officials telling NBC News that they do now consider officially the Saddam International Airport to have been seized. They say there may still be some pockets of resistance, but they do now control the airport. They're saying this airport is a good asset to have, adding we can do a lot with it. Once again, we are getting confirmation now from military officials that the Saddam Airport in Baghdad has been seized. Well, certainly a lot of information coming in from all fronts in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Rumors of an Iraqi plan to ambush U.S. troops at one bridge, while troops further south push north for confrontation in Baghdad.
But Chris, this is part of what we do. And the thing that was amazing about that was the fact that you had these vehicles that had come all that way through the desert, but were available to do a river crossing to help the Marines complete their part of the encirclement, here in Baghdad.
Colonel Brown, help me understand the strategy, because we talked to Dana Lewis before. Chip Reed, and they were essentially stalled, and they couldn't get over again because of some bombed out bridges. They were waiting for those units that build those bridges or put those pontoons out to go over. Why do that as opposed to the amphibious assault? What are the things that go into making that sort of decision?
Sure. It's really what you have, as Ken mentioned, in your tool bag. The 3rd Infantry Division, the heavy mech forces, the armored forces, very heavy tank. You have to have specialized equipment to be able to hold that much weight. The Marine Forces, amphibious is their forte, and they are equipped to be able to ferry troops across the river.
We saw, Colonel Allard, that they had been taking some fire, and we'd heard from Bob Arnott earlier today. They were taking sporadic fire, but when he talked to one of the Marines, he said it seems unplanned, chaotic, but it also makes them more dangerous. I wonder what your thoughts are on those comments.
Well, I think he's exactly right, because, look, when you go up against professionals, they're somewhat predictable. You really get in trouble when you're dealing with amateurs, because the fact what they do may simply be well outside the realm of what you consider possible or sensible at that moment. But that's what they're going to do. It's a difference in perspective. But it really does illustrate as well why we have the kind of emphasis that we do on overwhelming force. Because no matter what they do, you've got them. And there's something wonderfully unsubtle about taking 120 armored vehicles right downtown, because no matter what they do, you're ready.
Is there anything that you have seen, Colonel, whether it was in downtown Baghdad, around the Information Ministry, the Presidential Palace, or what we just saw with this amphibious move into Baghdad, that says to you that there's anything organized about the Iraqi resistance?
They seem very disorganized, and I will say for the U.S. forces, it really reflects that we fight the way we train. I know the Marine Force has trained for amphibious assaults. The Army forces, the armored forces, again, to do raids. So we are doing deliberate operations to take down the regime and take down his ability for command and control.
Very quick comment, because this is what you did, Colonel Brown. 2 reports, different ones related to chemicals, sarin gas and mustard gas, potentially aboard a BMP armored personnel carrier. There was another find with Dana Lewis that he reported first on MSNBC, that there was a dugout trench that had been camouflaged. They found all these barrels. Initial indications are that there are some sort of potential weapons of mass destruction. What's your reaction?
I think it shows that if it is in fact confirmed through the gold standard that the agents are what they are, then it shows certainly smoking gun that he has weapons of mass destruction. He has chemical agents that are not declared. It also shows that it doesn't have to be sophisticated. It doesn't have to be a missile that's loaded with these chemicals, but it can be very crude, like these barrels, these containers, that if you explode those over an area, you can really create a mess.
All right, thanks very much, Colonel Brown, Colonel Allard. Thank you, gentlemen.
Very close with his telephoto lens to the Marines on the rooftop up there. See all of them up there with their sniper rifles and with their radios. Down beneath, lower there is a family there. The trouble is there are women and children. They know there are snipers in these buildings, and they have a very, very tough dilemma. Do they shoot? Do they destroy these buildings and kill women and children, or do they have to take them out, take out these Fedayeen one by one? There's several different groups here. The Fedayeen, there's another new one. I'm not allowed to tell you what it is, but a very, very ferocious group. And these guys are terrific shots. I don't mean that in any kind of complimentary way, but they're up against a much, much harder target. I'm going to have this camera swing around. We have very little leash on it. You see there's an N1 Abrams tank behind me here. There's also several Amtraks behind me. That's sort of the direction of fire. Fedayeen tactics. What they've done this morning is they come frontally onto the U.S. Marines, then they come around the backside with a bus. The bus unloads, the Fedayeen go at them. It's just a few minutes ago, there was a medevac that came in here, a very dramatic scene. The purple smoke going up had 2 of the helos come in to take away these injured Marines. A very, very tough battle zone. A couple of corpsmen there on the ground trying their very best to stabilize these patients to be able to get them out of the zone. It's the way it's going to be. The tactical commanders here have looked at these neighborhoods. This is the front line. I can see U.S. Marines up here. They're all in position. It's a sporadic fight. There was very intense gunfire a few minutes ago. Now it's died down a little bit. They hope to suppress the fire. They had some Cobra helicopters and some F-14s in here off of one of the Navy ships, the Tomcats. You hear that big boom and boom, boom in the background. That's artillery fire. The artillery is over that direction. They are the 155 millimeter howitzers. But they're in a tough position here. Now that it's urban fighting, they can use the tanks to take out, say, an individual sort of section of a building, but they're very fearful of using artillery, taking out a whole building, because it's just laced with women and children. Now, Jim's going to pan around behind me to this building. We're going to feed you the tape of this as soon as we can. But I walked in here on the right-hand side, 3 men, one clearly a soldier, 2 a little hard to tell. They're rocket-propelled grenades all lined up on the floor, lots and lots of ammunition. As I walked out, a woman I'd say about 60 years of age, fairly heavy-set, with her black veil on, crying in tears, holding onto my hand, kissing it, hoping that they wouldn't be killed. I reassured them that American soldiers were there to protect them and not to kill them. But all the little children on the floor of this kitchen, crying, wailing, hoping that, against hope that they would survive. As I was in there, one very large incoming round exploding just outside. You can see some of the rubble outside of the building there. Huge boom! The children in tears, fearful, dropping to the floor. Back here was the command center. This is where the helo came in. You can see a mosque in the distance. What they're doing is they are using mosques and they are using hospitals. This is the way that they can hide their command vehicles. We passed several tanks on the way down through here. There are anti-aircraft pieces, but it's a very dangerous fight. We are in what's called East Baghdad. East Baghdad, West Baghdad, West Baghdad, the palaces, the airport, fairly easy to get around. We've seen that U.S. Army tanks have been able to move with impunity, although I understand that there may be one firefight over there now. This is where the battle's happening. Saddam City is an example. It's where we have all the Fedayeen, all the guerrilla groups. They are going to fight to the death. They could care less whether Saddam Hussein is dead or not. They're going to kill American forces. You have Syrian, Egyptian.
All right.
We found out yesterday Sudanese troops that are here. Yes?
Bob, I just want to let our viewers know, because you're a very aggressive reporter and you are out there right on the front lines, literally. I want to let people know that we are in a 5-second delay from what we are seeing right now, because your aggressive style can make some people nervous. But again, continue with what you're seeing. You said the artillery fire has sort of backed off a little bit, but you're still having sniper shooting. Is that what's the case? And also, Bob, put me in perspective of where you are with regard to Baghdad, because it doesn't look like a very urban developed area right there. Are you in central Baghdad?
Here's the, this is, rather than thinking of central Baghdad, you want to think of West Baghdad. Here's some fire there. Let's just turn over to where the firefight is. You can hear this in the background. See the smoke that's clearing away. Jim's going to kind of come right in there. That's where the fire's going. They're laying down fire. These are snipers who are up here, U.S. Marine snipers. They're very accurate. Here's some gunfire. Now, the difference in the fire here is that the thicker, throatier fire is going to be from the bigger machine gun, such as a 50 caliber submachine gun. They also have, I should say, splayed machine gun. These have been around literally for 50 or more years. Fairly significant firefight. That's return fire. You can hear coming back in. You can usually tell return fire because it sounds like the crack of an oak. The other day when we were in a firefight, you could actually hear it go over your head. These Marines, you know, I don't really think of myself as an aggressive reporter. I just think that these U.S. Marines put their lives on the line out here. We're going to cover them. I think that, you know, it's our responsibility to get out here to really tell their story. Tremendously brave. Now, let's go over here. Let's pan right over here. Here is someone who's being brought in by one of the Marines for interrogation here. Hard to tell whether he's Fedayeen or informer or exactly what he is. Seems to be going on cooperatively here. Tom. Okay. Tom, we're on television. Just tell me what's going to happen if you don't mind. Tom here is probably the most experienced weapons officer in the U.S. Marines here. You're sort of supervising the battle. We're not taking you out of action here, are we? Are we delaying you? Tell me what's happening.
Real quick, what's happening? We found a command post that they're working out of to our front, about 1,200 meters. We've already taken out one machine gun bunker at about 800 meters with a tank main round, and we're about to have artillery is raining in on their command post right now and prosecuting the enemy.
Now, you've taken casualties this morning, Tom. Up to this point, very lucky. It's tough. You're out here, you're in battle. You know that you've suffered some casualties. We don't say what those are, what's happened at this point, but how tough is that?
It's very tough. It hurts inside.
All right, thank you, Tom. So, again, the situation report is this. These buildings here, they don't want to take out with artillery, loaded with women and children, and they're doing that on purpose as a tactic. Up here, command center. Now, if you can look out behind me here, you see up in this berm, we call this a berm here, where you have that raised bit of sand. On top of the berm, you have 1, 2, 3 bunkers. And I'm going to have Jim just come right in with the zoom there. It's a little hard, I know, with this resolution. See those white bunkers up there? That was their previous command post. That was taken out. They now have another command post. And, Jim, I'm going to ask you, I know it's hard, camera work here, to go up there. You can see another white post up there for the trees. They have command post after command post. Now, since these are separate from the buildings, they don't mind using artillery. You may think of artillery from World War II as something that's just sort of scattershot that you may not be able to aim carefully. But the D-55, or the 155 millimeter howitzer that the U.S. Marines use, is so accurate that it actually takes into account the spin of the earth, the winds. We have a little bit of wind here, a little bit of the smoke, to be able to put that fire into a 55-gallon drum. So you often hear of close air support, bringing in the fighter jets. This is even more accurate. The great thing about it is the Marines have as much of it as they want. They have lines of artillery there. We saw it all through the night. You can see the overhead fire. We had the what are called RAPs, which are rocket-assisted projectiles.
Bob, I'm going to ask
through the night.
Bob, I'm going to ask you to hang on one moment. It is the bottom of the hour. I need to reset and bring viewers in onto what we are seeing. For those of you just joining us, everybody, I'm Alex Grid here at MSNBC World Headquarters. It is 2:30 in the morning, East Coast time, 10:30 in the morning in Baghdad. You're looking at a picture right now of our MSNBC Chief Foreign Correspondent, Bob Arnott. He is there on the video phone. He's in the Baghdad region. He has been in a live firefight right there, but there are a number of things before we get back to our live picture that we want to get you caught up on. First of all, a little more than 5 hours ago, NBC News reported that high-level officials are telling us it is possible that Saddam Hussein and his 2 sons, Uday and Qusay, may have been killed in strikes that were conducted by U.S.-led coalition airstrikes on the residents of the Al Mansour neighborhood in Baghdad. This happened between 2 and 3 p.m. local time Monday afternoon. To do the damage that you see right there, that is the spot they believe that in some sort of a bunker Saddam Hussein was meeting with his sons, military officials and intelligence officials. Apparently the United States was tipped off by some high-ranking member from within the Hussein administration that indeed the president and his family and leaders would be in this particular bunker having a meeting to take out this bunker in was called B-1 bombers with 4 JDAM 2,000-pound bombs. They were brought in and did, as you can see from the video that shows what's left behind, significant damage there. There have been a number of issues that have been brought up, most notably if indeed Saddam Hussein was there and if indeed he has been killed, how difficult will it be to get the proof of his death? There are a number of things one must consider. Would there be, with this kind of destruction, any sort of body able to be identified, left behind, that would indeed prove to the Arab world, international world, that Saddam Hussein has died? Let's go right now back to our MSNBC chief foreign correspondent, Bob Arnott, who is once again on the front lines, as he is so often during this war, covering it for us. He is in the middle of a firefight. Bob, I also want to tell our viewers that for those of us who may get a little nervous watching you, we are in a 5-second video delay and audio delay, so we are taking your picture. We don't want anything to happen to you harm-wise, but we want to make sure that you stay safe. And to that end, continue with your reporting there from the front lines.
Okay, just as you were starting there with your introduction, you saw some smoke clear across there. That was, I believe it was the M1A1's Abraham tank that was outbound. It's a little hard to tell what's inbound and outbound in terms of fire. But just was that inbound or outbound, Marine? Was that inbound or outbound, that round right there? Outbound. Good news, that was an outbound round. The tanks here are aiming at that position, and again, remarkably, given the threat to U.S. Marines here, given the fact that they have had 2 casualties this morning, they're being meticulous about trying not to take civilian casualties. I don't know whether you can hear it, but that's the artillery. I'm going to have Jim come right in. You see the big browns of big brown puffs of smoke up there. That's where the inbound artillery is. This is a 155 millimeter howitzer. It's coming in. You can hear it. Jim, I think you probably have a great shot of that. You can see the puffs of smoke coming up. It shows how close these command centers are. So the artillery is hitting this, regular delays. There are about 5 of these guns in sequence out there. They will be very careful to do what they call BDA, or battle damage assessment, to make certain that they actually have it, that they have that command center. Now, the way these battles work, it's not the kind of chaotic battle that you might see in a Rambo-style movie. These Marines are very careful. They're very meticulous about the way that they do that. This is the battle line right here. There are no Marines forward of this position. You have the M1A1 Abraham tank on the Abrams tank on the right-hand side, and Amtrak on the left-hand side. That's the furthest forward here. As Jim pans around, this is the real danger zone. This is what's hurting Marines right now, and that is this urban environment. This is the sprawl you see. This is what Baghdad looks like here, in one of the poorer areas. 1- and 2-story buildings, snipers on the roofs. 2 of the casualties this morning shooting down. But that's another one of the artillery shells. You can hear inbound. We can pan right back over to that. You'll have a regular sequence of that. That's the outbound. You can hear it's fairly close, and then there should be an inbound that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
See the black smoke coming up in the background?
We do, Bob. We're gonna keep up this video, Bob, right now. This is remarkable, the audio and the video. I'm going to bring you back in a moment, but before we do, I want to also bring in our MSNBC analyst, Raymond Tanter. He is a former National Security Council senior staff member from the Reagan administration, also a noted authority on American foreign policy. He's joining us on the phone right now from Williamsport, Pennsylvania. It's good to have you with us, Raymond. You're a friend to us, certainly many times here at MSNBC. I've spoken with you a number of times before, and want to ask you, first of all, with your level of expertise and your experience, tell us your reaction to looking at this live video.
This is the artillery strike here. You may want to get it with the sound.
First of all, listening to this, Raymond, what we're broadcasting live, let's talk about how this may be playing out on foreign airwaves, on perhaps shaping foreign policy.
Yes, Alex, Bob Arnold's report illustrates the coalition's plan of placing maximum pressure in the aftermath of trying to target the regime's leadership. And this will be played out in the Arab press as deliberate targeting of civilians, and it will not look good at all. It looks good in America, but it doesn't play very well on the Arab street, Alex.
After one angle.
So your thoughts on this kind of reporting? I mean, Raymond, overall, it is historic, as we've had Jonathan Alter, a Newsweek columnist and MSNBC contributor here. He's been saying it is remarkable, the coverage that we have this time during this kind of war, unprecedented. Before you answer, Raymond, we're going to go back, I'm told, to MSNBC's Bob Arnott, who has a little bit more to contribute about this live coverage. Go ahead, Bob.
What they've done here is that they have taken a strike on this command position. It's about actually 1,200 feet up the road here. It's where that white car is. What we saw was inbound artillery. They also took one shot from the Abrams tank here. So that's the command post. But what they're commanding is they're commanding individual Fedayeen that are in these houses. Now, I unfortunately can't hear who you're talking to there, but they were absolutely right that this is taking to the streets. It doesn't matter that Saddam Hussein may be dead or the leadership is dead. It's going to go on this way. They are not going to give up. This whole neighborhood is just loaded with rocket-propelled grenades, with mortars, with AK-47s, huge caches of ammunition. These are excellent shots. They're either present or former soldiers here, many from other countries, such as, and I saw the passports yesterday, from Sudan, from Syria, from Egypt, from Jordan. The tremendous difficulty of these Marines out here. We actually have a Sergeant Major. Sergeant Major, sir, you're one of the most respected Marines here in the Corps today. Tell me about the difficulty about this house-to-house fighting.
Well, these guys are hunkering down and taking cheap shots at us, and that's not a problem. That's what we train for this all the time. It's called mount training. We'll get them out.
I know you have a great deal of confidence, Sergeant Major. You have your men on the rooftop here. Talk to me a little bit about the tactics that tries to keep Marine casualties to a minimum, because I think it certainly puts a chill through me when I see your Marines out here in the street, walking through the streets. First of all, why do you have to have Marines on the ground and not in their vehicles as you go through these streets?
Well, they got a lot of RPGs, so if you're in a vehicle and they hit you with an RPG, you take mass casualties in one shot. We get them out walking the streets, then we can better envelop them and take care of business.
And the rocket-propelled grenades, you see them, they're ubiquitous throughout the third world. It's sort of a poor man's weapon, but they are able to strike. They strike some anthrax down in Nasiriyah, taking U.S. Marine casualties there. And as the Sergeant Major says, if you have these vehicles, we're in a soft-skin vehicle, eating these anthrax here. They have an aluminum skid. You hit them the right way, you can take casualties, which is why you put Marines on the street. Now, with Marines on the street, what's the best way to try and avoid casualties? They're out there in the open. They have snipers firing from windows up above. What do you do?
Well, if you look, you see most of these Marines are not just in the open. They're behind some pretty good cover. I got cover nearby, so, you know, the rounds start coming down range, we see cover and return fire.
How aggressively do you return fire?
Very aggressively. Overwhelming fire superiority.
Now, Sergeant Major, just take me through what we have out here. You have the Abrams tank, you have the anthrax out here, you have individual foot soldiers. Give me a sense of how you're fighting this battle. And as you know, you say the U.S. Marines have basically a three-block battle. We've seen out here humanitarian support for these poor women and children that are the victims of these. You have mechanized here, but now you have this guerrilla warfare. How do you conduct this?
Well, the challenge is to identify our targets. So we want to make sure that we don't kill innocent civilians and children. The guys we're fighting are terrorists. As you've seen, they've used terrorist tactics, so we're trying to make sure that we get the bad guy and let the good guys live. So it's tough, but we're doing a pretty good job at it.
You have 18, 19-year-old soldiers out here. Some of them look a little anxious. You give them a great deal of confidence. How do you do that as a leader?
We just try to be with them and let them know that, you know, the Corps has been around a long time, won a lot of battles, and it's just be another victory we would chalk up.
Now, Corpsman, do you mind coming over here, sir? We want to be very careful not to talk about actual casualties or what's happened out here, but you have been out here treating patients this morning. We don't want to talk about outcomes, but just give me a sense of what it's like for you as a corpsman out here. Give me your full name on camera.
My name is Joe Gallardo, and I'm with one first-time Fourth Marines. You know, my job out here is just to take care of these guys. Unfortunately, you know, we will have some injuries, but for the most part, I'm out here to do my job, take care of these guys, because these guys are taking care of me.
And it's remarkable, too, that this corpsman, I was with him out here this morning as he was treating patients. Lots of fire here. It wasn't as well protected early in the morning. Here's some of the ruling artillery there in the background. And he is risking his life. And these are U.S. Navy corpsmen that take care of the Marines, risking his life here on the front lines, ahead of the doctors, ahead of all the MASH units. Then these helicopters come in. What kind of a sight is it when you see a U.S. Marine helicopter come into a fire zone like this to take out your injured patients?
I'll tell you what, it's overwhelming. This whole experience is overwhelming. But to see the support, to see them come in, to see the Marines come and help take out patients, I mean, we're one big family. We have a lot of integrity here, and I'm really having a good time.
As you know, I'm a physician. I spent many, many hours in the emergency room, probably 10,000 or so, and watching these corpsmen out here, these corpsmen are better than many of us physicians in terms of this kind of environment. They practice combat medicine, and what they do is absolutely remarkable. It's just sort of unheard of in civilian medicine. They have to be able to run into a hot LZ. They have fire coming into them. They have to throw down a tourniquet. They have to do what they can as fast as they can, and then bring that Marine out, even doing CPR at times, to get them into an ambulance, to get them to a stable position, and then get them into a helo back out of the LZ. So these Marines are I mean, you have taken some casualties this morning. It's a dangerous situation. Are you still, I hate to say up, that's probably the wrong choice of words, but still feeling pretty aggressive and feeling pretty good about yourself in the Marine Corps?
I feel real good. You know, it's a part of war. Casualties will happen, but I'm going to give 150%, as well as all these Marines, and we're going to pull through this. We're going to pull through this. We're going to be victorious.
Now, you also have women and children out here, and you are treating those women and children, even those Fedayeen fighters that are hit in the street, exactly the same as if they were U.S. Marines.
That is correct. I've taken care of a couple of elderly back out of El Nazaria, as well as the enemy, and that's part of our job. That's what we're here. That's what we're here to do. We take care of everybody.
All right. Thank you very much for being here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask out here. There is a lull here in the fighting. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bob, with regard to the Marine casualties, were you near there? I know that you're a medical doctor as well. Do you know what kind of casualties those Marines sustained?
I do know what kind of casualties. Since there were no physicians up here, I was asked to come out and to help out. But there's sort of a boundary in journalism where when I cross that line to help out medically, it's something that we don't film, we don't talk about, we don't report on, just so that we keep those two lines completely clear, and we don't sort of blur the line between doctor and journalist.
Understandably adhering to some sort of a wartime Hippocratic oath there, I think perfectly respectable. But the numbers of casualties that you saw, Bob?
2 casualties here this morning. There was one shot to the neck. There was one shot to the chest. Very accurate fire. That is usually when someone does shoot to kill, they're going to shoot for these areas here. So the person who shot was a very experienced sniper. They are shooting down. They're shooting from the rooftop. And what happens in this whole war is a change in tactics. As soon as the U.S. engages, they'll see one tactic. For instance, you may remember almost a week, we had very heavy incoming fire. There were 6 artillery shells landed about probably 300 feet from us. To many Marines, it was pretty frightening. I mean, it really shook the ground. But the tactic there was to quite quickly go out and chase down the vehicles rather than trying to return fire. Here, they're learning. This is a learning experience. They took those 2 casualties. Now they're changing tactics. They're on the rooftop. They're in the buildings. They're not patrolling the streets as aggressively. Tom Parks here is one of the most aggressive and one of the most distinguished weapons officers in the Marine Corps. I'm sorry, you have to go.
Bob, yes, I'm going to ask you to stand by with your guest there for just a moment, because we have...
They're called rocket-propelled grenades. These are what have been used and shot at U.S. Marines. I don't want to pick this up, but you can see the grenade portion here. These are fired extremely dangerous weapons. They've already killed U.S. Marines in this war. Now, let's walk through here. This is the kitchen here of the... where's the family gone? Oh, I'm sorry. Just a few minutes ago, they were in there. Here they are now. Salam alaikum. Ahlan wa sahlan. Ismuha. Ana Ali. These women are terrified. Huge firefight outside. Women and children in this bunker. Let's go over here and take a look. You have also here women and children. Salam alaikum. Ahlan wa sahlan. They're reading their Quran. You can see a beautiful little girl here. Little children, terrified. Outside, ferocious fighting, house to house, artillery, rocket-propelled grenades in the streets. U.S. Marines shot in the streets. In the front room, rocket-propelled grenades. Men of they're terrorists here engaging U.S. Marines. You can see that black smoke on the horizon. That's the command post the U.S. Marines have taken out. 2 Marine casualties this morning. They were shot from. And let's come over here. These rooftops here. U.S. Marines have now basically changed tactics here. They are on the rooftop. Sir, tell me your name and what you're doing here.
I'm First Sergeant Lawrence Archibald with Bravo 14.
And Bravo 14 is doing what?
We are on a securing the bridge for follow-on forces to come through.
Now, you were telling me that there are women and children who are out fleeing there, but military-age men with them?
Correct. Out to our northeast and northwest, there are civilians fleeing, but there's also mixed in civilians, civilian clothing, young men, and those are the ones that are going in the bunkers and popping up fire and joining the crowds. So in this region here, we also found large caches of arms, munitions, heavy machine guns, 82 and 60 millimeter mortars, RPGs, large caches.
Right. Thank you very much, Sergeant. Now, there are here on the roof, of course, snipers from the U.S. Marine Corps. Sniper rifle here. Sir, you're a sniper here. How far away can you take a target from?
About 1,000 yards.
About 1,000 yards. So you could hit someone where that black smoke is coming from?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Bob Arnott, MSNBC, and this is the front line in the new war against terror in Baghdad. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Bob. A very...
I've got you live, not on the live line.
Here's the situation. Behind us, you can see a crowd here, fairly enthusiastic, go USA, but also a little angry because they have no food, they have no water, they have no electricity. Charging this line has just been reinforced, a line of U.S. Marines. I walked out there to tell them to move back. They've not done that. They've reinforced that line. You can see an Amtrak here. Now, the action is all taking place inside this compound. We've fed you some video that you should have pretty soon now, with some M1A1 Abrams tanks that reach that hole right there where you see the Humvee with the tow missile on top. Now, there's smoke that we can see that may be hard to see with the video from behind. There's been a number of 155 millimeter howitzer shells that have gone into this compound, a firefight. It's the usual sort of pattern here. What happened this morning, Jim's going to turn the camera around 180 degrees to the Ba'ath Party headquarters in back of us. They come into town, they go to the Ba'ath Party headquarters, they get some intelligence as to where the, as they call them, the bad guys are. They line up these Amtraks, but then what happens after that, if Jim will pull the camera back around again, is it's the Marines on foot. We've been with them on foot throughout the town. It's a dangerous task. They leave these Amtraks out here because they are very susceptible to rocket-propelled grenade fire. So the tanks are in there, but everybody else is on foot. It's very precarious. You have Marines are facing one direction to make certain there's no fire coming in from this way or that way. Now, strategically, what's happening is, you know, several days ago, the Marines landed crossing the Diallo River, amphibious assault. They've been moving in day by day by day. We're now roughly at what's called Saddam Hussein City. The Fedayeen yesterday, vicious fighting. Here, a little bit less resistance. The crowd seemed to be very, very happy. Go USA. They'll kiss your hands. They'll kiss your feet. They're just sort of delighted that Fedayeen have gone. Now, this is the main road into the center of Baghdad. And the Marines just hour by hour progress. They do it very methodically. They clear all the buildings. They make sure that there's nothing in the way of armaments in there. When there are, they blow those up. They look for the Ba'ath Party members. They arrest them. They interrogate them. A very interesting real-time analysis that they do. They will arrest the individual Ba'ath Party members, anyone that's suspicious. They have intelligence experts there who, in a very sort of calm way, interrogate them. They're usually very forthcoming. It gives them intelligence to be able to save the lives of Marines here on the ground. Now, the reason it's sort of black and overcast here, maybe hard to see on your camera, but from here it is that last night, about 500 yards from our compound, they set a major oil fire. You see huge flames billowing into the air. It's one reason why there's so much smoke around here. They're trying to keep the helicopters out of the air. We don't have any helos in this morning, no Cobras, although I believe that the visibility has lifted to the extent that the Cobras could come. Now, the new national sport, now that the Marines are in here, is looting. If the camera just pans over here, and we'll have you come a little bit tighter, you can see all of these men over here. They have big barrels full of products from this electrical factory behind us. As soon as part of town is liberated, the looters come in, they say, thank you so much. You can see them waving now to the camera, thumbs up in part because the Americans here, in part because Saddam Hussein no longer rules this region, and in part because you can hear some clapping in the background, clapping everywhere we go. They are able to sort of loot at will. Now, the Marines are taking a different tactic with this cigarette factory to try and block it so that local businesses are not destroyed. But there is now no more law and order. There's no police force, Republican Guard. There's no one to sort of keep the law and order here. The Marines are fighting a military fight. They have to protect their own Marines here. And it's not until the civil administration is established
that these will become anything more than cowboy towns on the way into Baghdad. Back to you.
Bob, I want to ask you, who do you believe set those oil trench fires? And to that end, are any remnants of those forces still around in the region?
Well, here's exactly what we found. Going house to house in the sort of part of Baghdad just in back of us, roughly every house would have a huge cache of arms if they were on the end of a block. Rocket-propelled grenades, 73mm anti-aircraft guns. Now you can hear that in the background here, the boom, boom, boom. That is the mortar fire there from U.S. Marines firing into a position. So all of the Army, we ask people, we say, where have the soldiers gone? They go, Baghdad, Baghdad, they've gone. So the best intelligence is Republican Guards have just got up without any fight at all and they've left. But the hardcore guerrilla groups are here and they have nothing left to live for. Bath party, we were in a bath party this morning that is in a school. We walked through the school, there's the classrooms, all the kids, all desks, they have their little merit badges up there. And then you have the individual certificates. Tom, could you get me one of those certificates, please? Bath party, I'm going to show you one of these. With children who actually have joined the party, it actually is for the freedom of Palestine, it says on it. So, Bath Medellin, very vicious, they want to fight, but they're getting mowed down by the Marines. There's a huge amount of concern that the Marines would suffer large numbers of casualties in battle. It's often 60% in urban warfare, but they have this down to a science now. This is the certificate we found at the Bath Party headquarters. You put your picture right over here, and this says Philistine, Palestine. It's a movement for Palestine, and over here you can see that it says Bath Party, and then an Arabic word really, which means communist. So a communist communal Bath Party. So you have these, and they have been hunting down the Bath Party members. So strategically, overall, big view here in East Baghdad, probably the most dangerous part of town, biggest population centers. The Republican Guard have just run. All you have in terms of resistance to the Fedayeen, they're extremely well armed, but given this huge U.S. Marine machine, they come in and they just mow them down. Yesterday, you remember about this time, there was a big gunfight. We saw the artillery fire came in. It actually destroyed a bunker, and you can see body parts flying out of that bunker as it killed the Fedayeen. So the Fedayeen are learning that they have no match in the U.S. Marines, and they are pushing through very methodically. I, too, have been incredibly impressed with the commander here, Colonel John Meyer. Very meticulous man, nothing in the way of a cowboy attitude, though he does want to move to Montana when he eventually retires and be a cowboy, but just very, very careful in terms of lines of fire, making certain Marines aren't fired on, making certain there's no sort of, gutsy Hail Mary move. Slow, methodical, saving the lives of U.S. Marines here, and still getting the job done. This urban warfare, everybody feared, but so far, and we want to knock them when we say this, things are going very well with very, very light casualties.
But Bob, I'm looking at the picture behind you, and we do see that large crowd. How concerned is the colonel that, in fact, there could be Republican Guard forces or others dressed up as civilians with every intent to do harm on the Marines there?
Well, I get a flavor for this crowd. I just walked out into that crowd there, and they'll surround you, and they're happy, and they're go-go USA, but then they start to really manhandle you. They take you and push you and hit you a little bit, and these are all young men, all of military age. No women in that crowd there. If you look at Jim, you might just want to try and zoom in. It's a little hard with this camera and the resolution of this video phone to see, but besides some of the boys, they are all of military age, and it's just a little hard to tell who's who at this point, which is why the Marines are so concerned, because they're friend 1 hour and then enemy the next. My experience in dozens of countries that I've been to that have been freshly liberated, whether it be from a dictatorship or whether it be a democracy that's fallen, is usually day one like this. You come into town, everybody's thumbs up, yes, hi, hello, they're happy. But then day 3 is the time that the bad guys, as the Marines call them, melt back into the crowd and start taking pot shots at you. The idea here is to move through, take big arms caches, take out the organized military forces, try and get the locals to identify the Fedayeen. The Marines also taking an interesting tack, which is to go to those parts of town that are Shiite. We talk about the Shiite South, but large parts of Baghdad are also Shiite. If Jim just sort of pans down, this is not the worst of it, but look at this. This is all garbage. Every place you go, it's just garbage. Where we slept last night was like a swamp, a fetid swamp, just sewage running through it. These people loathe Saddam Hussein because they've ruined their future. They live in squalor such as you haven't even seen in parts of Africa. I think a great hidden part of Baghdad that many of us have not seen before on other trips when the government let us in is just the unbelievable squalor that these poor people live in. These are educated people, they're ambitious people, but they basically have just been destroyed by Saddam Hussein. He's taken away even the basic essentials of living, just water, any kind of roof over your head, basic electricity, and any kind of sanitation. Now, the filth that you see around here contributed to a rate of diarrhea of 14 times per year per child in this country. Now, if your child or mine in the United States had a diarrheal illness, it would be a very sort of nickel-dime disease. Chances they'd be sick for a couple of days and they'd be better. Here, it chills. It's the #1 killer worldwide of children. Of course, that's because of the weighting of third world countries. And as these children go day by day without enough food, with dirty water, they get diarrhea and it slowly starts to kill them. The big concern of the international humanitarian movement is that as military forces move through, they're very, very effective. They get their goals taken, but there's no civil administration behind it at present. And that means no doctors, no nurses, not effective hospitals, no health care. There's not clean water. And so they fear that the death rate will start to rise. Now, if you look at these crowds, they look healthy because they're young men of military age. When you go into the Republican Guard compounds around here, what you find are huge piles of sacks of grain that basically was contributed by other countries or bought in the Food for Oil program under the United Nations. So the children starve, but the military basically stays healthy on this food that was contributed by so many foreign countries and that was bought through the UN Food for Peace program. So it'll be interesting to see how it all works out. It seems pretty clear that people know who George Bush is. When you ask them who they prefer, they say they prefer George Bush over Saddam Hussein. They were a lot more reticent a week ago. Not sure that the Marines would really come through, not sure that they come to Baghdad, but now that they are, they just couldn't be more delighted that the U.S. Marines are finally here and that they believe they're finally free. They keep asking, are we free? And the Marines keep telling them, yes, you're finally free.
All right, Bob, remarkable pictures, great storytelling. Thank you so much.
MSNBC's chief foreign correspondent Bob Arnott is in Baghdad and reports on the death of a Marine from the 1st Expeditionary Force, the unit he was embedded with before he reached the Iraqi capital.
Lester, last week there was an amphibious landing crossing the Diyala River into East Baghdad. This was by the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines. The next day they engaged in a severe firefight in East Baghdad. Now at that point there was incoming mortar fire, outgoing artillery fire, a tremendous exchange of munitions on both sides. There were houses found there that had guerrilla fighters in the front with women and children in back. Now one of the Marines going house to house was named Juan Garza. He was a sergeant who was looked up to by everybody in the battalion. Phenomenal U.S. Marine. Risked his life, put his life on the line so that these Iraqis could be free. Unfortunately, in that firefight, they shot him in the back. I first met him in the last minutes of his life as he came into a U.S. Marine ambulance on the front lines with fire coming from all directions. Despite tremendous efforts on the part of U.S. Navy medics there, he unfortunately did lose his life. 2 U.S. Marine CH-46s then swooped into a live fire situation. His body was taken out by 4 U.S. Marines, rushed out into the helo. I followed him into the helicopter, and in a dramatic scene, Tom Parks, who is a battalion infantry officer, took the United States flag and put it over his body as these helicopters went into the air. They were shot at as they went to the air. We could see their expendables coming off of it. Just yesterday, the U.S. Marines of Bravo Company of the 1-4 had a memorial service for him. You could see his rifle stuck with dagger down into the ground with his helmet on top of it and his pack. I had an opportunity after that ceremony to speak to some of the men of Bravo Company, and here's what they said about Juan Garza.
Made his wife proud, I'm sure. His family proud. He certainly made me proud. All he ever wanted to do was be a Marine. Damn, he was the heart and spirit of this platoon. We're gonna miss him dearly. He's gonna be a Marine up in heaven and with us for the rest of our lives.
Garza, he was probably one of the toughest, most loyal Marines that I've ever met. He had the biggest heart out of anyone that, probably anyone I ever met.
They're saying they do not want Saddam's police. They say that these police have been brutal. They've tortured them. They put them in prison. We have two guests here. The first of them is a major in the Iraqi police force. His name is Hassan Munchin. These people say they hate the Iraqi police. You've heard them. No Saddam police. You're wearing the uniform of the Saddam police.
Yes, I heard them. And I said, so am I. I hate Saddam police. But we are now Iraqi police. Saddam's ex-government gone. And we try to recover peace and quiet and law and order in our city.
Now, Major, we also have with us a captain of the United States Marines, Joe Plensler. Joe, you have undergone some screening. It's not just every police officer that comes back.
That's right, Dr. Bob. We were looking at a bunch of different methods by which we go through and screen, and some are better than others. A lot of times we rely off of word of mouth, who's a good man, you know, and get people kind of congregate together. So I think it's going fairly well. We just started, but it's going well.
And you're getting new uniforms to get rid of this hated dark green?
Yeah, eventually. I think we need to make a clean break, and that's something that both the current police officers and that we have discussed, and I think that you'll see that in the future.
And Joe, it was remarkable today. There was a demonstration here on the street. Something would have been impossible under Saddam Hussein's regime. You saw this demonstration. They were demonstrating against you. What did you think as a police officer and as an Iraqi citizen?
We are very happy to see that.
Happy?
Very happy.
Why?
Because we see the first result of democracy.
The first result of democracy?
Yes. Mouths were shut down 4 years ago, and now freedom.
You have freedom back. But now, if they'd had this demonstration a month ago under Saddam's regime, what would you have done as an Iraqi police officer?
The ex-police may beat them or imprison them.
Imprison them?
Yes, or trial them.
Try them. So for the same demonstration just a month ago, in prison, beaten, tortured, as we see some of them, how do you, Joe's with the United States Marine Corps, you're with the Iraqi police force, how do you like working with the U.S. Marines in terms of restoring order here?
We like to work with the U.S. Marines because they help us to recover order and law in our city. We want to recover and restore our city's law and order, and the U.S. Marines help us to do so.
Now, your police force was responsible for torture, imprisonment, awful things. What's happened to the police officers who did all of those terrible things to people we've spoken to right out here today, who showed us the torture marks?
In fact, we reject all officers who had bad records for torture and corruption. Yes, corruption was a privilege in police.
So they had a privilege for that. So it's just a remarkable story here. The United States Marines working with the Iraqi police force. A lot of demonstrations. People are very upset, but they do want to change this uniform. The Marines have really gone to a great effort here to make certain that they do not have the bad part of the Saddam police, but they do have the cream of the crop. Remarkable situation here today in Baghdad. She was injured. We saw the surgery the other day. She may be getting septic. What are you doing now in terms of her care?
We're trying to get some medical attention to her to see if we can get her lifted out of here, and hopefully we can do the same as like we did the day before.
Give you a pretty good feeling?
Yeah, yes it does.
What's it like being out here with all these kids, huh?
I tell you, hey, I have two of my own, and they keep you going.
Want to say hello to your kids?
Yes, I like to say hello to Rashonda Marcus. I love y'all. Be home soon.
All right, and this soldier here, U.S. Army, is a real hero. He's done a tremendous amount of good here. Saved 3 lives so far, maybe a 4th now. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. Bob Arnott, MSNBC. Lester, back to you.
Building Iraq will involve protecting some of its priceless historical artifacts. The ancient city of Babylon was the cradle of world civilization thousands of years ago. And in modern-day Iraq, the area sits about 55 miles south of Baghdad on the banks of the Euphrates. In the last few days, looters stripped the museum of its ancient treasures. ITN's Andrea Catherwood has the story.
Babylon means the gate of God. Here, 8,000 years ago, on a fertile crescent between 2 rivers, grew the seeds of Western civilization. From here, 600 years before Christ, King Nebuchadnezzar ruled much of the Middle East. These the ruins of his lavish palace and hanging gardens. Here, Jews exiled from Jerusalem to Babylon sat down and wept by the river Euphrates. And here, in the last few days, looters ransacked the museum and stole the treasures tracing the history of this ancient site. The curator had bricked up the entrance to protect the artifacts, but a guide showed me where looters simply knocked a hole in the wall and stripped everything inside. These glass cases housed pieces dating back 4,000 years, priceless, irreplaceable. All that's left, stonework depicting Nebuchadnezzar's lion, too heavy to lift. Of these pieces from 2,000 years BC, the first is in the Louvre Museum in Paris. This one?
It's stolen in Babylon.
Stolen in Babylon.
Stolen in Babylon.
The other two looted from here a few days ago. Babylon was also the prize of a more recent ruler who sought iconic status. Saddam Hussein was widely known to have viewed the ancient king Nebuchadnezzar as a role model. He even built his own palace overlooking the ruins of this one. Now the treasures of Nebuchadnezzar's dynasty have been looted from Babylon, and American troops have taken over Saddam's palace.
By the ruins of an ancient civilization, and the current war is bringing new interest to old history. NBC's Jim Bruton takes us on a rare tour through the ancient city of Babylon.
A small group from the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines came with me to the ruins of Babylon. It was amazing to walk within the reconstruction of the city and Nebuchadnezzar's palace, and it made me vividly imagine what it was like to live back during that time.
I'm Lieutenant Commander Tom Weber, U.S. Navy, here in Iraq after the war and the freedom of the people of Iraq. We're at the ruins of Babylon right now, looking at some of the digs and seeing what they have uncovered for over 2,600 years ago, back when Nebuchadnezzar reigned and was king of this empire. And it's a beautiful place. I'm glad we got the opportunity to see it. And right now you just see some of the earth that's been unearthed to show some of the ancient ruins.
The Babylonians were incredibly advanced for their day, designing rain gutters into their streets and using the wheel. As I walked through the Ishtar Gate and down the procession way, I could see carved images of ancient gods all around me. We know what we do about ancient Babylonians because they wrote on clay using wedge-shaped letters called cuneiform. Their daily lives are also reflected in this fragment of a smoking pipe and this pottery shard. But what foundation was required for the rise of such a great civilization?
Hammurabi's Code came out not exactly the same time as the Old Testament code of ethics for the Jewish people, but it's quite similar. And it's amazing that all the people at that time had similar ethics, but the Jewish group went along with what Moses wrote down, and the people of this area tried to live according to Hammurabi's Code.
There has been a lot of press lately about the looting of local sites and museums around Iraq, and I can tell you that Babylon has suffered as well. But one of the directives of the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force has been to stop such looting, and to that end it's established its headquarters very nearby. Over the next few days, the MEF will be meeting with the locally elected mayor and city officials to discuss this and other issues. The goal, how to maintain stability while Iraq transitions forward into its future. Jim Bruton, Msnbc, Babylon.
A fascinating find.